on this episode of Southern Fried Geekery.
You can't call yourself fighting against the system if you're comfortable in the system.
1, 2, 3.
I really
ready
want
to do
Angela
this?
Bassett to be my mom. God, she's amazing.
Unless she's an American Horror Story, then she's scary.
Well, that's true. Man, they should have gotten Pam Grier to be
I wish she
part of this.
could have been there
God,
somewhere.
like that woman makes me question being gay.
Makes her
She's
move a little.
really pretty. Ugh.
When you say
Absolutely.
Pam Grier, I always think of the lady that played Mindy on Mork and Mindy. I know her name was like Pam something.
Oh.
But
This is like
I know
this
who
is
Pam
the
Grier
complete
is.
opposite,
I'm
bro.
talking.
I know.
I'm talking about Foxy Brown.
Oh,
Son.
I know
Talking about
exactly who we're
coffee,
talking
Bucktown,
about.
USA, Little
Alright.
Birds in Big Cages. Let's go into black exploitation, the 70s big black titty movies.
I
We
know.
can watch this shit. On this episode of Southern Fried Geekery.
You just said big black titty movies.
Brother, that's what led me to black exploitation films. Then I enjoy them for other reasons.
I mean, that's married life, son.
Heard.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Caleb.
I'm Craig.
I'm Sean.
And we are actually sitting here with our, I guess, newest full-time co-host.
I love how you said that with a question mark.
Well, I don't know what to call it. But yeah, Jerry has been able to kind of fully commit to the podcast and is going to be our fourth chair. For a while. So welcome,
Yay
Jerry.
for Jerry. We all love Jerry.
I
No,
heard...
we're not actually going to let you talk. You just get to
Oh
sit.
shit! You're okay. I'm sorry.
No, just welcome to the show for full time, man. We're really glad you're doing this with us. So, but what this episode is all about? This episode is all about Black Panther. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to get up, stop whatever you're doing, unless you're Craig, because he has to finish his podcast. But then you should go see it. It is a worldwide phenomenon. It came out this past week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure about dates. It's taken everything by storm. It has reached outside the boundaries and limitations of just comic bookdom and kind of nerd culture to touch something that speaks to a lot of people. And so we wanted to get together and chit chat about the movie. But for the most part, as most of you guys know, we are a couple of white dudes sitting around talking about this. And so what we didn't want to do was speak for people. So we went out and we got some of our friends from the local community, some of the friends from our local comics communities, and we put the mic in front of them and we let them talk. So here in just a little bit, we're going to throw some of those interviews at you. But first, we are going to give our thoughts, synopsis, dribble about what we thought about the film, or what we think about what it means. So.
And of course, as we are discussing the movie, this is spoiler territory. Big time
Major.
spoilers. Craig.
I'm good. I mean, honestly, so I haven't seen the movie yet. I plan to this week. Life has been busy, and
Well, but films aren't necessarily your big draw either. I
they're
mean,
not.
you didn't. I mean, Spider-Man's your favorite character, and you didn't go see the Spider-Man film.
Still haven't seen the
Yeah, still
latest
haven't seen
Oh
it.
my god.
That's not your. That doesn't seem to be your major. Like, it doesn't pull you in.
Well, I do have some thoughts on this movie, and I heard someone else say this, and I'm going to kind of steal it. It doesn't really matter what I think of the Black Panther movie.
Right.
What matters is what I've seen and how I've seen it affect my friends who happen to be people of color.
For sure.
And how it's influenced them in positive ways. And not just people of color, but minorities of any race. It's been a positive effect on them. I'm going to let the interview speak for themselves, mainly because I haven't seen it. But I really, to me, that's the big thing on this movie is what it's done for them.
It's been really, really cool to see.
And it's huge. It's Star Wars type numbers, guys. I mean, it's huge.
What was it last year? Whenever we went to go see, was it Guardians? No, Thor. We went to see Thor and we saw the trailer to it, and we were just kind of talking about how they put a little too much comedy in some of the Marvel movies sometimes, and we were sort of talking about how Black Panther looks like. It's going to be their next Winter Soldier or something. I totally yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that's how I felt. Yeah, it had just the nice little spices of comedy in it to just give it that. But for the most part, it was very well story driven and didn't have to rely on slapstick comedy.
Absolutely. Again, kind of like echoing what Craig said, culturally, huge movie. Great what it did. Glad to add that truly use that word diversity into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're glad for how people are accepting and what it's doing for people. I will have to be that guy because with all that aside, all those accolades, did have some nitpicks. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to clarify. Really, really good movie. Really enjoyed it. Honestly, just with the fighting, when they were out of costume, when T'Challa was just out of super fighting for the right to be king.
Right.
Fight choreography, and I'm a big fight choreography guy, so you have to understand, it's just my own personal preference here. Thought it was excellent fighting. Like, they used CG sparingly when they needed to get some of the fancier moves off, and the fighting was great. When he got into costume, I think a little too heavily reliant on CG action.
A lot of people have said that. I've heard that.
And like I said, and it was fine. I get it because he's super enhanced human. They want to do some stuff, and just like I said, purely personal flavor for me. I think when you put on a suit like that, you can put any number of talented people into that suit to have legit non-CG fight choreography put down. Right. I would have liked to have seen more of that. But
I noticed it more towards the end of the film, not with Black Panther, but with Killmonger when he was in the Golden Lion outfit.
And that was the thing, like I said, we're getting into spoiler territory, but when they are throwing down in their suits, fighting down to the bottom of somebody, amazing. That's obviously when you need to use CG to get that aerial battle going on. But then when they're fighting in the train, like the helmets come off, so the actors, you can clearly see them when they exchange. They put the helmets back on. That's usually when you would put a stuntman in, but then it just went into watching a video game. A very well done. Like, people who say the CG looked terrible, I don't agree with that one bit.
Right.
But I just think it was a little overused when it didn't need to be. Now, that's my complaints aside. Positives real quick, just going with bullet points. Killmonger, one of the best Marvel villains they've done, because Marvel, ever since going back to the Sam Raimi movies, they wanted you to have a sympathetic villain. They didn't want to have someone who was just evil for the sake of being evil, which they had with Claw, and he was amazing also.
Right.
But Killmonger was a sympathetic villain. You could understand his plight, where he was coming from. He just went overboard.
Well, yeah, it's showing you how you take those wrong paths, for sure. Absolutely. And a lot of people are calling him the MCU's version of Magneto, because it's that same, I can understand how you got where you're going, but I don't necessarily, you took the wrong path at some point.
Killmonger, just one of the best Marvel villains I've seen in a long time, for all those various reasons. Claw, great, just psychotic enemy. He was a great villain, and they both fell to the Marvel curse. It's okay. They were great for what they were. Hoping to see what the villains are going to bring in. And by the way, just to go full circle back to the fight choreography, my complaint, you want to see how they use CG sparingly and made an amazing fight scene, just look at the casino scene.
Yeah.
That was an amazing action scene. Yeah. I wanted more of that, a little less video game. Other than that, fantastic movie. Glad I saw it.
That was actually probably one of my favorite scenes was the casino fight scene.
So was Claw used as like a minion, or was he his own villain?
He was his own villain, but it very quickly in the film transferred to where he was not the main driving force. He was a vehicle for the character of Killmonger to get from point A to point B.
They actually kind of played it off, and I feel like they did a pretty good job of it, of making you think that Killmonger was his minion towards the beginning of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he's basically Crossbones from Civil War. Kind of set the
but way better.
Yeah.
I would explain it like the first half of that movie, you think Claw's going to be the big bad. Marvel does like to do the whole, like, or was it Marvel or DC who typically does, like, here's the villain, no, here's the real villain.
It's a bait and switch, yeah.
But expertly done this time around, because Killmonger overstepped Claw with a much bigger reason. Much bigger. I mean, they were both excellent, and it was a good transition between the two.
Gotcha.
This is probably in my top 5, if not my top 3 Marvel films that they have come out with yet. Everything, you spoke about the fight choreography, the action. That was all amazing. It was well written. The dialogue was on point. These scenes where you got to see Wakanda and you got to see this architecture and this Afropunk futurism thing, that's just insane. It was so well done. It was dope. Honestly, what this movie did for women, not just people of color, but for women. You've got characters like Shuri. You got to see Angela Bassett being a badass. You got to see, I forget, Oku, or I forget Black Panther's, T'Challa's girlfriend or his love interest's name. in a lot of ways, it was equivalent to what Wonder Woman was. And I didn't necessarily see that coming because you're thinking about a whole different area of what this movie means. But yeah, this straight up spoke to black women in a big way.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always forget her name when I want to bring her up, but it's the lady that plays Michonne, T'Challa's general. You want to talk about this a strong leading woman character? She was amazing throughout that film.
Absolutely, and there was no damsel in distress. There was no damsel in distress. There was no limiting them to what they were. They were on equal footing with the men, and they were just as badass. And also, there were armored rhinos. I squeed.
My favorite character would have gone to her sister in the movie, Denai Guerrera, who played Okoye.
Yeah,
she was a fucking badass.
She
like
was.
That whole casino scene, made that character.
I just want to be clear that Denai is actually the woman from
Walking Dead.
Dead.
Yeah, Michonne. That's
It's
Oh,
Michonne.
okay.
my major complaint with this film was that once again, I think Marvel messed up the villain by killing them. Sorry to ruin that for anybody who hadn't seen it yet, but you can't really talk about this film or what it did without mentioning the fact that they kill two villains off again. And so my problem with that is not the fact that I don't think that this would happen, that it makes it realistic, but it ends the possibilities for that thread. One of my favorite villains previous to this was Zemo from
Civil War.
Yeah, Civil War. Yeah, because he was also a sympathetic villain. He was a villain because they dropped his city, they killed his family as collateral damage, and that led him to do these things. Imagine a film where Zemo and where Killmonger team up. Both of these people who have legitimate grievances, who have an understandable path to what took them to a dark place, but they diverged and went down the wrong route. Imagine them doing a villain team up and seeing how the Avengers or how Black Panther and Captain America would team up to stop them. That to me would be a fantastic film. That would be a set of villains that would resonate and would speak to people. And we don't get that because Marvel keeps fucking killing their villains.
Well, and now that the X-Men can be used in the Marvel universe, you could have had a Magneto Killmonger team-up movie that would have been amazing because it's the same perspective from two different minority classes.
Yep. And we could have gotten to see Storm team up with T'Challa to do that. I mean,
And have Thundercat babies.
there's so many connective paths that they could go down if they would just quit killing their villain. Let them go out. You know, you've got these amazing actors like James Spader playing an Ultron. Let them go into a second one. That's all I'm saying.
Going back on that though, that's always been my biggest fault with so many of the Marvel movies because that's the biggest pull to a Marvel character or any superhero character is their villains. Like having a huge rogues gallery and a great rogues gallery is what you want. So I really don't understand where they kind of get off at killing all these villains because it's like the only thing that makes a good hero is a great villain. And it's like that's sort of where I wanted to that's where I wanted Zemo. Like I feel like Killmonger is what I wanted out of Zemo.
Right.
Because I mean, not saying that it was like a huge letdown or anything like that, and I know we had to get to the fight of Cap and Iron Man and everything, but I honestly wanted to see Zemo kick some ass. I mean, I understand like where they went with it.
Well, and because especially Zemo and Killmonger are in a lot of ways the same character.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of going back, especially on Black Panther, about them killing off Killmonger. I admittedly have not read any Black Panther because I don't really know what his rogue gallery looks like. But what I've been told and I understand, Killmonger is like one of the big bads for him. And while granted, I think the strongest points of Black Panther were the supporting cast, villains, and his own people, together. So by getting rid of Claw and Killmonger, when they make it,
And those are Black Panther's big bads. Those two specifically.
when they make
and maybe Namor, but
but when they come with the inevitable sequel, I mean, they're gonna have to really come with a really good villain, or it's just not gonna feel as good as this one. I think.
They are. Well, that's kind of our roundtable thoughts on this movie. We all really, really enjoyed it. We all encourage everyone to go see it. I'm gonna go see it again. Like we said earlier, we are 3-4 now white men, 3.5 white men.
Thank you.
So that went and saw this movie, and we have our thoughts on it, but we don't want to speak for anybody else. So we are fortunate to have a very, very large group of friends that is very diverse. I mean, we've got people that, we have conservatives, liberals, we have black people, we have white people, we've got gay people, we've got straight people, we've got this good little mix of fans, of nerds.
You have gay people?
In Central Arkansas, that we have built these relationships with, and we wanted to let them talk. We wanted to let them use their own words, their own platform to tell us about this movie. So we sat down with several of them. I think we have 5 people, maybe 6 people.
6 people, 5 interviews.
To let them tell us what this film meant to them, and not only that, but what Black History Month means. Because it's no coincidence that this movie, this major blockbuster hit that means so much to so many people, came out in February. It's Black History Month here in America, and it's taken a long way to get to where we are now. There's still a lot of work to do, to be done, to reach racial equality, to reach all kinds of equality. And so we sat down with our friends to get their perspective on things. So here's a few interviews. We really hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome back to Southern Fried Geekery, and we are still recording this live at Not Just Another Comic-Con in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm still Caleb.
I'm Craig. I'm Sean for this.
We finally got Sean in on one. And we're also joined by our friend Ron, and I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit.
What's happening? It's your boy Ron Mack, the Hip Optimist, and I'm going into my radio voice because I don't know why. Yeah, it goes down in the right town. It's great in the 8th state. Tune in.
That was impressive. You have to teach me how to
amazing.
do that. So Ron is joining us not only because he's a guest here at the con. He had a table set up. He's an incredible local artist. I think we've all bought an art from Baltimore. That's a real damn word. We have all purchased art from this gentleman in the past. I actually just got my first piece from him this week, and it's pretty incredible. So Ron works kind of hand in hand with some local comic shops. He's able to come sit in, do some artwork, get his name out there a little bit. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started doing comic art and jumped into the comic book world, man?
Okay, so I'm an old dude. So I started collecting in about 85. Yeah, and so I was a big John Byrne fan, being an artist, and
Right on.
George Perez fan with Teen
my
Titans.
hero.
Yes.
So I really got into their comic books, and I would trade them in the lunchroom. I was in elementary school, and so I started creating characters then. But when I went to college, at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff,
Go
and I
Lions.
started my company. Exactly, go Lions, rah, roar, baby. I started my company in 1992, and so with the starting and debut of my company, I released an album which was half rap, half R&B, which I both produced and performed on. Then I produced a book of writing and stories that I had written. So my company is music, writing, and art from an underground perspective.
Right.
The name of it is Backyard. So that's how I got into both collecting as a young kid and then drawing later. And so now the latest thing that I've been involved with is my college friend, coincidentally, who had a little half of shelf in a drugstore down in Pine Bluff, the only remnants of a comic book place. Lives in Kansas City now. He hit me up about 5 years ago and was like, man, we need to write a comic book. I've created characters. You inspired me back in the day. So let's get together. And so that's
Right
what
on.
I'm working on now.
Oh, dude, that's incredible. Are you working on an actual title now, or are you just doing kind of
The Ties That Bind, it came out during this con.
Yeah.
This was the first Comic-Con where I debuted it. And so it's number 1. So it'll be 1 through 3. And
Very
I already
cool.
have 2 and 3 drawn out, sketched out, all thumbnail-wise. And
Right.
all I have to do is draw them. Well, I say all I have to do, but
like that's not a process. in
right,
itself,
life
man.
will come in the way, I know.
So it's interesting because from an artist perspective, it sounds like you've managed to incorporate 2 different forms of art, both in music and in visual arts. How have you incorporated those together? How did you bridge that gap?
Well, what I discovered growing up was that, and I'm coming from a spiritual thing right now, I feel like I was gifted to be an artist.
Yeah.
So, or creative. So I'm a poet, a songwriter, a producer. So I know how to put sounds together. I'm a visual artist. I'm a dancer, which I'm
He's
injured.
breakdancing right
Yes,
now, guys,
yes,
right?
I'm injured.
He says he heard
Yeah.
himself breakdancing. He's in it. You can't see this obviously because it being radio and the ears don't have eyes.
Right.
But he's wearing a boot on his foot right now. He says he heard it breakdancing, but I saw his wife snickering in the back.
Right.
So we're not sure what might have happened. My buddy might have said something he shouldn't have.
I know.
We're just guessing.
I know. I said something sacrilegious about DC Comics or something.
I'm just saying he did go to church this morning and ask for forgiveness. That happened.
Right. So yeah, I've always been a creative. So all of the arts I've participated in, been a thespian or am a thespian. I've done plays. I just did a play 2 weeks ago. So
Very cool. Locally here in Little
yeah,
Rock?
it was it's called a choral play, which is a play put to poetry.
Uh-huh.
So I was a vocalist in it. So I sing. I'm a choir director. So the arts are my thing.
Right.
I'm an
Absolutely.
artist. I exude it.
Well, there's
but
so
for
much overlap in those.
yeah, and for me, it all started with hip hop. Honestly, graffiti was one of the first things I've ever drawn, and shortly after that was comic books.
Very cool. Now, have you read Hip Hop Family Tree?
Is that the thick
Yeah,
anthology
it's done by
type?
well, it was done episodically like most comics are, but it's by a guy named Ed Pisker who wrote and drew it. He's a huge hip hop fan from way back, and he did this thing where he walked you through, and there's some artistic license taken, but
Right.
he walks you through the lineage of hip hop. And I'm an old school hip hop fan too, man.
Yeah.
So I really dug this thing because you really got to see how it worked out and how the different pieces that meshed together.
Yeah,
and
I think I have that actually. I received it for a birthday or Christmas or something. You know, once you get old like me, you know, your family says, "What can I get him other than a coupon to the comic book store?"
Hey,
I
man,
mean,
right? Amazon wish lists are the best because I can tell
Right.
you what I want, you can buy it, and then everybody's happy.
right.
So
right.
no, man, go check out Ed Pisker's Hip Hop Family Tree if you haven't. If those of you who are sitting out there in Radio Land,
Yeah.
if you haven't read that, it's a comic. It's a sequential walk through the world of hip hop. Run DMC is also into comics, man. I got to meet up with him in New York a few years ago, and he got to tell me a little bit about his books and stuff that he's producing out and how he got to start. He sold his collection to produce his first album.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think what you will find is comics have really been a part of America, and there's a subculture of collectors and people who really love comic books that
Absolutely.
you wouldn't even understand or know,
Yeah.
you know, in all kind of corners. And, you know, for me, I didn't see people like me in comics. So when I created my character that I drew and wrote for, his name was Sly initially. And then with the help of one of my writers, Sean McIntosh, Cliff Wynn is the brother that I'm writing with from Kansas City. But Sean McIntosh was like, man, it would be cool if you gave him something else, you know, Sly, Fox, maybe name him Sylvester. And then I was like, that's comic book stuff. All those links.
Yeah.
And so it was initially Sly the hip hop hero. So he's a very street level character. He was a former drug addict, and so his lookout friend gave him a Mickey in his drink, and he got that, and then his mutant abilities were suppressed until he got sober. And so when they did manifest, they were greatly enhanced, and he's sort of a daredevil, street level type character. The Shadow Fox is.
What is to
Well,
be a
you know,
visual?
as a straight white, all I saw in comics was representation, you know, and so, and when you did see a person, you know, it was Luke Cage, and they made him as ghetto-licious as you can make him back
Right,
in the day,
right,
you know.
right.
White
So-
exploitation stuff. Man.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
so you didn't really get to see a true representation,
Right.
you know. So I'm glad to see that diversity is finally starting to penetrate. It's got a long ways to go still in comics. It's headed in the right direction.
Well, what I really appreciate about the recently released Black Panther movie is I think it was a story that it was not void of race per se, but it was a story told without race being the dominant
Right.
factor. It was just a story of a hero
Yep.
and his homeland, and so it wasn't anything that was about the hood or any other cliche that might come about when you think of a black character.
So, man, what is the indie comic scene like in Arkansas? Because you've been in this game a lot longer than I think most of us have. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, for me, and I've gone to cons a long time. Believe it or not, it was probably a room with less people than this in Hot Springs when they were doing Comic Cons.
Yeah.
And Dave Finch was in there.
Yeah.
Just chilling. It was before he was bald headed. And I have a Polaroid of me and Dave Finch, and he showed me some perspective back then. And so immediately after graduating college, I had already produced one, maybe even two comic books while I was in college. So I kept doing that, and then eventually I compiled it in a graphic novel. But I was never really serious about comic books. I'll say in '92, I saw Jim Lee. I was already an X-Men fan, but I will credit Jim Lee for bringing me back to comics.
Right. Yeah.
You know, during college. And so then when Image happened, it did awaken in me this feel, man, maybe I can make it. So I gathered up my stuff. I showed people, you know, I sent out letters, and they were really asking for submissions during that time, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
When the indie really, Image, when Image really did what it did, everybody was kind of scrambling, you know, trying to find somebody that. And so as a matter of fact, Extreme Studios sent me a letter back saying your anatomy is off, and I was like, Rob, so my anatomy, and I like Rob. I actually love the way he puts a page together, you know, as a visual artist.
I've said it on this podcast before. I love Rob's interiors. I'm not crazy about Rob's covers, but I do appreciate Rob's interiors.
Yeah, I can appreciate what he brings to the table, the emotion, the layout, the setup. Of course, I would, you know, line stuff up, you know, more accurately, but I really appreciate what he does, man, and I can appreciate what he brings to a comic. So I said all that to say I hadn't really seriously pursued it. I'm a school teacher, so I went a long way to answer your question.
Oh no, man.
I hadn't seriously pursued it, but with this latest venture that I'm doing with Cliff Wynn in Kansas City, I really either want to quote unquote be discovered, you know, in hip hop terms, I want to be down, or and for a white straight male, it's hard for me to say. Well, no, I'm black, but anyway.
I was wondering where you're going with that, buddy.
This is why we love you, right?
But yes, I do want to. I'm very much interested in this milestone thing that's about to happen, and all other kind of things. This kind of bubbling with Black Panther. I not maybe because of this interview, but because of Black Panther, this interview happened. But I know I did receive interviews because of that whole thing about a black hero and that, and you've been in the game for a long time. But I have never really felt serious about going into it. But now I've really heard some people say that I can make as much drawing a page as I could teaching. So I think I'd rather draw than put kids in the headlock.
I've seen your art. I would absolutely say that you have an audience and you have the potential to draw a whole lot of ink.
As somebody that owns some of your art, I was just telling somebody earlier, probably David, I don't understand why certain people aren't picked up on mainstream, because you're certainly one that deserves a shot.
Well, and I say this again. A lot of my references are going to be from the hip hop world. It's a brother named Damon Dash, and incidentally, he said this on a podcast. He said there are two mindsets in the industry. He was talking about entertainment.
Right.
In the industry, you have the creative, and then you have the businessman. Right. And on the spectrum, you have businessmen at one side and creative at the other, and their jobs are totally different, because at the end of the businessman spectrum is devoid yourself of emotion.
Yeah.
No, my artist needs to go. He needs to move now. He has a concert in the next state. No more autographs. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we'll have to catch you on the next tour. Catch us in Alaska. Artists, we gotta go. And then on the creative side, whether you're a visual artist, you're a dancer, you're an actor, your job is to be as intact with emotion as you can.
Right.
How can I, as a actor, portray emotion to communicate that with everybody. I have to be sensitive to that. How can I, as a visual artist, be so sensitive to sight and color that I can render something that pulls something out of it? How as a producer or vocalist can I express my voice that makes it sound so pleasing to the ear that somebody's going? I have to be so intact and so sensitive to sight, sound, emotion, movement,
The
all
world
this,
around you.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas as a businessman on this side of the spectrum, I have to devoid myself of that. I don't care
makes
about
sense.
politeness or manners or whatever is bottom line.
Yeah, it's money.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm a businessman in my
Okay.
real life.
Oh.
In my non-podcast life. But I don't see how I can look at somebody that's super talented and not go. It's in my best interest as a businessman to employ that person that's got the most talent.
And that goes to your question as to why, I'm just going to use your words,
No, yeah,
or paraphrase, how somebody so talented maybe not be in the industry already. I think I'm on the creative end, so I need somebody that's emotionless
Gotcha.
and heartless and just
I understand
to
what you're
represent.
saying.
That's business.
Yeah,
That
to
cutthroat
be that
businessman.
agent, to be that manager, to be that person that says, hey, look, this artist.
I got you.
And the other part about it, in the music industry, they always talk about it's better to have representation than you as an artist to go in. So if I'm a rapper, if I go to a program or music manager and I say, hey, man, my stuff is hot, that's one thing. But if somebody else says, my client's stuff is hot,
Right, makes sense.
Exactly.
You have to have an agent.
I need somebody to push for me. Thank you. We'll draw up the contract.
Yes, sir.
Well, man,
I actually know some agents, so we'll talk later.
hey,
absolutely. So, well, I want to close this out. There's one question that I ask every artist that I talk to, and this is carried over from me just being a fan, something I've talked to people in the past for. And I'll preface this with a little bit of a story. The first artist I remember seeing and connecting with was George Perez.
Mhm.
Before then, I'd read comics all up to that point, and it was a situation like, oh, these are comics, these are funny books, they're amazing. I really appreciate these. It's bringing me lots of joy. But when I opened up Kurt Busiek and George Perez's Avengers, it really struck me as, oh, there's somebody creating this art.
Right.
This is something that's really phenomenal. I need to put a name to and a face to this art. No, and it turned out to be George Perez, which legendary. Who was the first artist, especially with you being an artist? Who was the first artist that really like woke you up? That really like, oh, there is somebody producing this.
John Byrne, inked by Terry Austin.
I'm so glad you threw the inker in there, man. That just made me
Oh
happy.
man.
So John Byrne is just amazing, right?
Oh man, ridiculous. And so, of course, that primary Terry Austin with him, killer.
Yeah.
I mean, can stand up against anybody. I feel. But I liked Gil Kane. I liked Neil
Gil
Adams. I liked George Perez was probably my number 2
Right.
penciler though during the day because
Right.
I loved his fingers and his expressions and everybody looked like and they say this now of Jim Lee, but he made like when you saw Superman stand when George Perez drew him, it was Superman standing.
It was.
Oh,
Yeah. And it was
and
like
that transferred over to his Marvel characters as well.
right.
He's to me he's iconic. I get everything I can
Yeah.
with his name on it. He's one of my favorite artists. I haven't ever had the chance to meet him. It's kind of a bucket list thing, but
Right.
I want to. But Ron, I really do want to thank you for sitting down with this man. I know you've had a busy weekend. It's
Yeah,
been long. Your wife stepped on your toe.
Right.
Yeah,
Hopping around.
But I appreciate it. And man, we will see you around at Kapow Comics. Tell people where they can
Sherwood.
reach out, in Sherwood. Tell the people where they can find some of your art at, or how they can connect with you if they might want
Deviant
to.
Art, Ron Mack. That's all in MC.
Yep.
That's Ron Mack. And if you want to give me an email, you can holler at me at thathiphop@gmail.com. THAT Tom Henry Alex Tom. That hip hop. People say that hip hop? No. That hip hop at gmail.com.
It's good stuff.
That's right. Southern Fried. It goes down. That's right, y'all. It's your boy Ron Mack, the hip optimist. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. This is your host Caleb,
And I'm Craig.
And I'm Sean.
and we are here today with a buddy of ours, our friend Tyler. Say hi to the people, Tyler.
What it do, people?
So This is going to be one of our series of interviews that we do with some friends of ours where we're talking about getting to see the Black Panther movie, and we're talking about kind of how Black History Month works into fandom. So we're talking to a couple of our friends, and we're going to kind of let Tyler do most of the talking on this, just to kind of tell us who he is, what he's like, and some of what it was like growing up in. You're not from Arkansas, are you?
No.
You're from out of state. Well, tell folks just who you are, kind of how you got here, and what you want to talk about, man.
Oh no, man, who I am? I'm Tyler. I'm a black nerd from everywhere. My dad was a military brat, I'm a military brat, and my dad was in the Marines, so I pretty much traveled everywhere. I was born in California, and so from California I went to Texas and all that other stuff. So I've pretty much traveled a lot.
Now,
We're at in California.
Oceanside.
Yeah, I lived in San Diego.
Hey.
So the Air Force brought you to Arkansas, right?
No,
No.
I was not in the Air Force. I've never been. I was in the Air Force, but I wasn't in the Air Force for Arkansas. I was in the Air Force for in New Mexico. Worst place I've ever been. Clovis, New Mexico.
Nice and dry.
Shout out to Clovis.
Oh my goodness.
But now you're an aeronautical mechanic.
Yes.
From what I understand.
So yes, now I got a job from a friend saying, "Hey, you need your experience to work here." And I was like, "Sure, why not?"
Jobs from friends are great. So, did you have a chance to watch Black Panther yet?
I did.
Awesome. What did you think?
Oh man, it was an amazing love story from African Americans to Africans.
Right.
It was one of those stories. It was like it's a racial and cultural divide movie. And it's like, for me, I saw Killmonger as the best Marvel villain that they ever can have as of the moment. Like, he's an African American who just wants the country of Wakanda to, like, the nation of Wakanda, like, notice black people and their struggles and what they're going through. And I sympathize with him. I mean, he's a villain, yeah, but I sympathize with the whole help us, like, please. Yeah. But at the same time, I still recognize that Black Panthers, like, the Black Panther side of it is, hey, we can't. This is our culture, and do you see what's going on out there? Like, did you not see Germany and Nazis and all this other stuff? How can you blame us for just protecting to ourselves, for just being to ourselves and staying?
Well, in a lot of ways, from when I was watching it, the flip side of the argument from T'Challa seemed to be, look, we can't be the oppressors that they were. The cool thing about the Black Panther and about Wakanda and everything is it's kind of a isolated bubble of African society that was untouched by colonialism, untouched by imperialism, and what Killmonger was doing is coming in here and saying, "Hey, let's adopt those tactics that we don't like, and let's apply it to the rest of the world." And what T'Challa said is, "No, you can't become your enemy to defeat your enemy." It seemed like to me. So I don't know. Did you pick up on any of that?
I did, and the best thing about, and another thing about Killmonger that he did amazing well is he forced Black Panther to see a view of it, like to adopt a view and say there's a third option, and you could see where he was like, I mean, he's not wrong, but he's wrong. So right. I'm gonna open up my borders and I'm gonna let people in. I'm gonna help people and stuff like that. But I did see the whole colonizing versus, like, and that's what he brought. And that's the amazing thing about Killmonger was he was brought up in how America, like, works and the system, and he was like, this is what I know,
right? And
I'm going to apply what I know to other places. So it was just like, wow.
Yeah, he was a military trained killing machine.
Yes.
That's what he wanted to use the power of Wakanda to kill all over the world. And even he admitted he killed his own brothers and sisters, as he put it.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so this movie was heavily political, but let's step away from the kind of political connotations. What did you like about this movie as far as it just being a movie, action-wise, compared to, obviously you can't dissect the geopolitical aspect of it away from it, but as far as like the action, the acting, the comic bookness of it all, what were some of your favorite aspects of that?
Man, the action was amazing, on point. I think a lot of people complained about the CGI, which I kind of see, but at the same time, it was like the action in it, like when he had to fight for when they had to fight for the next king and stuff like that. I was like, that was amazingly done. And then his general, Danelle, like, she was amazing. She was amazing. She threw a wig at somebody and killed him. I was like, this is she is on point right now.
Well, she is Michonne.
Yeah, she is Michonne from Walking Dead. So, oh my goodness, it was all amazing. I think at the same time, I see. I know we don't want to get into the political side of it, but
no, we do. We do. I was going to give you a chance to talk about that, and we can go back into that.
Okay,
so it's whatever you want to talk about, man.
Like for one side, hey, I get it. If some people didn't like the movie, you're not going to be a racist for not liking the movie.
Right.
Like don't put yourself in that category of I didn't like the movie, so and it's all black movie. I'm a racist. Like no, this.
Unless you don't like the movie because you're a racist,
or unless you don't like it because it's an all black movie.
Indeed,
right.
Indeed.
And it wasn't an all black movie. I think that
there was 2 white guys.
Well, there were
tokens. I haven't seen it yet.
The Tolkien white guys, Bilbo and Gollum. Yes.
So, were you a Black Panther fan before the film franchise came out? Have you?
I wasn't. I have to admit, I wasn't a Black Panther fan before. Like, I knew about the Black Panther, but I wasn't huge into like what they wrote about him and stuff like that. Like, I read about him when he was like when he got back into the Fantastic Four, like when he like jumped in, and I was like, oh, he's back, and now he's gone. But I wasn't huge into him. But this movie made me a huge fan of his, and like seeing his views on like how he can protect Wakanda and stuff like that. I was like, yeah.
Do you think that this film is going to be something that will draw you towards Black Panther comics?
Yes, most definitely. Like, if y'all can tell me like the best Priest.
My favorite one is the run by Christopher Priest. It's probably one of the best for me. One of the best Black Panther runs. You can always go back to the Lee and Kirby stuff, which is where it got its inception. But Christopher Priest's run was phenomenal. It's kind of the quintessential for us, or for me at least. I can't speak for anybody else. But also Jonathan Hickman working him into the Avengers was really, really good stuff. You also get the side of the story where for a little bit his sister was the sovereign and carried the mantle of the Black Panther in Wakanda, which was a really cool run too. So you should check those out if you haven't.
Oh snap! We got any of that, man? All right.
I just want to point out we are recording live at Kapow Comics in Sherwood, Arkansas.
Matt is here, but
the proprietor Matt is standing far, far away where we can't hear his lovely voice, but he is kind enough to let us use the space.
Kapow Comics located in Sherwood, Arkansas. Come check them out. It's good. It's a great story.
So, obviously, we liked Black Panther. Black Panther coming out in February during Black History Month. I don't think was any accident. I think that was orchestrated to be what it was.
Yeah, but conspiracies.
They're seeing Star Wars type numbers off of this movie.
It's huge.
It's breaking records.
It is absolutely huge, and it's huge for a lot of people that aren't necessarily comics fans or not necessarily Black Panther fans like yourself. But I want to kind of step away from Black Panther a little bit. So, being black in fandom.
Ooh,
what's that like? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Being black and being a nerd.
Yeah.
2 things that would get you beat up on the playground. You're a black person, you're a nerd, bro. You had no chance. Like, you are the target of bullying and ridicule and everything else. And now seeing it is like, really, all our fans now. You hypocrite, mother.
You can say that.
We're not all ages.
We put that little E next to our name.
But I mean, guess. Power Rangers, who was I?
I'm assuming
Blue Ranger Billy.
Oh yeah, I was Billy.
that was what the gay guy was for.
I was the Pink Ranger. I didn't know any different.
I was
I never watched Power Rangers. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I prefer Super Sentai, the Japanese original versions.
Okay, Jerry. Jerry's not here, but
I know
that Sean pretending to be
spot on
Jerry.
impression. I know.
You had some trouble growing up with being black and a nerd. Was that from necessarily some of your peers?
Yeah,
some of your black friends, some of your white friends, or was it a mixture of both?
Both. White friends would regulate me to being any of the one of the people who are black and on the show, and it's like, oh, well, that's who you are because he looks like you,
right?
And then the other people black people would just be like, you're a nerd, you like throw my Yu-Gi-Oh cards on the floor, like mess with me so bad. But I never let that get to me. Like, I never let that. I'm still who I am today. I'm still a nerd. Right so on. I think my favorite growing up was like Static Shock. Like, Milestone Media really helped me growing up. Spawn too. Yeah. So Dark Horse. Like,
People forget that Spawn is a black
character. He is. I think a lot of times that's because you don't see that aspect of him.
Well, you don't. He's wearing the mask
Yeah.
all the time, so you don't. But people do forget that
He does, they
he's a
do.
black character.
Oh man, I mean, if you wanna talk about people forgetting, and we're talking about Black Panther, you need to talk about Blade.
Yeah.
And people forgetting Blade. Like, how do you forget somebody who like saved Marvel, like money wise?
Honestly,
like,
started the comic book film almost a revolution.
I would say that what Blade did is all of the movies up to that point, other than the first two Batman movies, were campy comic book movies. And then you got Blade, which was this magnificent, beautiful movie with a blood rave at the opening scene. And it was just a beautiful thing to see, and it changed where they realized they could go with comic book movies. I feel like.
Well, not only that, but as a younger white kid when that movie came out, that was a little bit different for once in my life. And I remember actually having this thing. I was like, I want to be the black character, and playing with the sword and stuff like that. And watching some of the older my parents and family having a weird adverse reaction to that. And I'd never been in that position before, and it was interesting. It really was, and it makes you
prepare you
think.
for later in life.
Well, it did, yeah, as far as coming out and everything, definitely. So, going beyond just comics, though, we're looking at parts of Black history, and Black history is applied to fandom. What are some of the things that you did find, that you did see yourself in? Some of the things that you did see some representation, or that you would have liked to have seen some representation, and who are some people that really helped you find that place in fandom?
So, don't get me wrong. I appreciate everything that, like, people who, like Jack Kirby and people like that who made black characters. But at the same time, and there's a but. Here's the but. At the same time, it never related to me until my social media, like Dwayne McDuffie and them, put out Static, Virgil Hawkins, like a nerdy black kid. But
right.
I never like, and this is for today too. Like, there's always that. Here's a black person who's a hero to the hood.
Right.
It's a black person hero to the hood, and then I'm like, I don't relate to that. I never grew up in the hood, and no offense to people who did grow up to the hood. Like, I'm not belittling, I'm not like doubting on anything, but I just can't relate to that. I never could, and it's always been a problem for me, and a lot of people too, who always feel like, well, here's another black movie about somebody being in the hood, or being a Tyler Perry movie, or being this, and it's like, can we just get a story, please?
Right.
Like, just one story, and just talk, and it'd be a black person, and just give me that story. Right. It doesn't have to be political. It doesn't have to be an agenda. Just give me that story.
I think and I hope we're seeing some of that now.
Yes.
You look at different characters. Well, I mean, we do have a movie like Black Panther that just came out. There is a inner city element to it as far as when Killmonger grew up, but there's also T'Challa is not just a superhero. T'Challa's a king. T'Challa has to make these hard decisions, and from a position of power. Mm-hmm. Which that's one of the divides between what he and Killmonger have a problem with. Is Killmonger's from a place almost devoid of social power, where he wants to use power to almost making the oppressed turn into the oppressor. T'Challa has to separate that.
Yes,
which I think is interesting.
It is, and like I said, it was a story.
Yeah.
It was a story that I understood, and it was just amazing. And
that's awesome, dude.
I loved it. So Ryan Coogler made an amazing story, and I think I hear a lot of people compare it to The Lion King. I'm like, maybe it was based in Africa. Maybe that whole the heart-shaped herb was like one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, they go to the plain and you see all the panthers in the tree and stuff, but at the same time, I'm like,
in fairness, Caleb made that reference before he saw the movie.
I did. The reference that I made wasn't necessarily comparing it to The Lion King. It was comparing it to elements of Shakespearean tropes, which is, I mean, The Lion King comes from Hamlet. There were Hamlet-esque parts to the Black Panther storyline. That was the connection that I made. I wasn't saying that just because The Lion King takes place in Africa, all of a sudden we have to relegate it.
And I just want to throw out for the record that when I went and saw it on day one with several of my black friends, Somebody
throw
made
that in there,
Somebody
huh?
made that comment. Yes, because I also had to add in. It was one of my black friends that made that comment. So just so you know, they said that was very Lion King. I'm like, I'm glad I didn't say it.
Wow.
Hey, that's real.
The Colombian has spoken. But yeah, man. What else you got? You want to? Let's.
I'd like to ask: are you reading anything now that you relate to cultural wise?
Oh, nothing now. I mean, I'm still waiting on my social media to do what they're trying to do. I don't even know what they're trying to do. I see their posts and them like putting up like images, like hand drawn images of like here's Icon and here's Rocket and here's Static. And it's like, so y'all gonna release
When are they coming?
this?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm still waiting on that. But everything...
There's a company called Lionforge that you might want to look into. Just if they've got some titles that go towards minority communities. I know that they've got a lot of titles that relate to me as a gay man. They've got some that are written by they're written by, about, and for the black community. So that might be something you want to look into.
Ooh.
So it's kind of sticking to the Black History Month theme. Who what icons maybe do you want to?
Oh, okay, icons. I mean, as always, Martin Luther King Jr. But outside that, geek-wise, I mean, not even geek-wise, just nowadays. I mean, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, man who wrote the Boondocks, the cartoon show.
Yeah.
Aaron Gruder.
Aaron Gruger, thank you.
Boondocks. Yes.
Dwayne McDuffie, like I said, like there are so many people that like helped me pave the way of just you don't have to be this.
Right.
You don't have to, like, being a black person doesn't mean you're with the what all your friends tell you are. Like, oh man, you don't have your dad around, or you eat watermelon fried chicken, or so many other things I've heard that it's just like, really? And people like that, like Dave Chappelle, like, man, that's not even true. And, like, Chris Rock even said it ain't even true. Like, I don't think I'm a snowflake black person. Like, there's a lot of black people who are like that. Like, because they don't like shoes from Michael Jordan and stuff like that, because they don't like basketball or anything like black person related,
right,
then that makes them like better than other black people. It's like, oh yeah,
you don't have to be put into a box.
No, you don't have to be. And
you're not a demographic checklist.
No, and that's where people like, and that's the problem is people like do that to themselves. It's like, I'm surrounded by I have white friends and I'm like this. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, don't ever put yourself in that situation where, because you're part of the culture that you think is mostly acceptable or right, that you have to be their token. Like, don't ever regulate yourself to be their token. Like, if someone started making me their token, I would defriend them. Like,
right.
I would never, because then you just put yourself in a situation where you're one of the good ones.
Yeah.
When someone says that, you're one of the good ones.
I had that conversation in another interview, and it's not the same, but being a gay guy that kind of fits into the straight world a little bit more, I get that all the time. Like, oh, well, you're just one of the good gays. Like, no, I don't even know what the fuck that means. Like, I'm not here for you.
Speak
this is just
truth.
who I am, man. I'm not here for you. I didn't come here for your approval. I just happen to like some of the same stuff you're in, and I think that maybe there's a little bit of relationship to that.
Preach over here, bro. Talking
well,
the truth.
I don't want to preach. I can preach all the time. I want you to preach.
But you already knew where I was going with it.
I did.
So,
yeah.
Like, and I want to talk to like the white people on it who want to like look out and look in, who are probably like, this political, this propaganda, this it's always a motive or something like that. Like, I think people feel like that because media has gotten to you so much. Like, you care, like, it's like flashing in your eyes. Like, black people this, cop killed a black person this, black person on this, black. And not even just black, like lesbians, gays, women, transgender, boom, 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 boom. And it's all in your face every day. And you're probably tired of it. There's a lot of white people who are like, I'm sick of it. I think y'all should really just take a step back. Like, turn off your television, turn off your Facebook, turn off anything. Whatever is like flashing on your eyes, because you're getting a negative opinion of something that shouldn't even be a negative opinion. You don't have to care.
Yeah.
You don't have to care. It doesn't even relate to you.
As much as people like that are sick of hearing about it. Minority groups are sick of not being heard. I think is what it relates to a lot. And there is a place where we finally, different minority groups finally have a platform where we can get a movie like Black Panther. And not that there hasn't been. Well, I want to talk about that for a second. So there's a lot of people who have came out and said that the Black Panther film is the first black superhero movie, or maybe the first black superhero that means something. And of course, the answer to that is, oh no, well, we had Blade, we had Steel. You had movies like
Meteor Man, Blade
Man. Captain Comet. What those movies do exist. What separates Black Panther from those films? What makes it different? What is that unique aspect of it that really is touching not only you but so many people? And I'm not asking you to speak for anybody, not yourself, but
I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah,
man, what Black Panther for me? Why is it different? It's because it's a black director, it's a black cast, black women. There's like I can now you can name 3 black women. Beforehand, tell me the hottest black women you ever seen.
Pam Grier.
It's probably Halle Berry but give me 5. Put it up there. But man, it's you have all this black excellence in a movie and celebrate it. And then you have a love letter from African Americans to Africans. Then it's so much subtext and so much dialogue and so much representation, so much everything. And it's whoa. It's it comes at you, and it comes at you in the feels too. Because it's man, I mean, yeah, Blank Man, Meteor Man, Spawn, all those movies, Blade, all those exist, but they never got the hype, the credit that they deserve. Tell me when, after Blade came out, was he on the Avengers? Right. Did he fight Thanos? Marvel didn't do anything with him. The most successful person, this most successful movie just had a trilogy. You would think, you would push that. You would think, it's hey, people might want to read more about this. And nothing. That's where he failed. You failed people, Marvel failed people by not capitalizing, utilizing on what they got. You got Miles Morales. Hopefully that they capitalize and utilize Miles Morales. They got, but when they did,
let you know there is a animated Miles Morales
there is,
movie
but I was really animated? Don't trust.
I don't know. I mean, I can.
I'm gonna see it, but I mean, it is nice seeing those people who aren't animated, real live human beings, getting a chance, getting an opportunity in film.
But
representation matters.
And at that point, representation does matter, but don't do it for the sake of doing it.
No,
there you go.
And I think that's the difference in the Black Panther film than maybe from some of the other stuff. Is I won't say Blade, but Blade was Wesley Snipes surrounded by a bunch more white people. Steel was Shaquille O'Neal with a fairly decent amount of African American people in that cast, but surrounded by white people. This was not. It was not that. It was a movie made by black people, starring black people, directed by black people, for everyone. And I think maybe that's what it is. At least from my very white man perspective, is it wasn't a movie made by white people starring black people for some people. It was a movie made by black people starring black people for everyone. And it took it out of, like you were talking about earlier, it took it out of, they weren't fighting for the hood. They weren't fighting for anything, any niche thing. They were fighting for the fate of the world, for the fate of everyone.
Uh-huh.
So I want to thank you for talking about this and for giving us the opportunity to, like I said, 3 white guys on a podcast. I didn't want to speak for people that I'm not supposed to speak for. So that's why we wanted to get your perspective, man. And it was a fascinating one. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler.
Hey guys, welcome back to Southern Fried Geekery. We're going to sit down with our buddy Mike now, part of our Black History Month interviews.
Some of you may remember Mike from episode 3. He was on our toy.
Hey.
Yeah, he's definitely been here before, man. He's family. He is podcast family. Mike, introduce yourself to the folks and tell them a little bit about yourself again.
My name is Mike. I go by Castro. I do music and a tattoo, which, it's a little bit of everything. But I mean, just a normal geek. I don't look like one, but I mean, I'm a normal
You ain't wrong.
Geek fanboy, all of that and above. And you guys, I appreciate you guys having me. I was running a little bit late, so I'm sorry about that.
No, dude, perfect timing.
we're actually in the comic book store live right now, so that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I do want to say, just because this microphone picks up stuff, be careful and tapping on the table and stuff like
My
that.
fault, y'all. I have the stereotypical black hand where I got to touch
talks
everything.
with his hands?
Yeah, I got to touch and beat down on stuff and just be really active. So I'm the guy that lives up to that stereotype.
So, have you seen Black Panther yet, man?
I have.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit of your thoughts on the movie, just to start off with?
It was amazing. I actually had a moment or two in there where I kind of lost myself. I wouldn't say lost myself in a bad way, but I guess I was so caught up with excitement. And I mean, I waited till the really, really late show because I wanted everybody else. I was really pumping it out to people like, go see it. I don't care if you see it before me, but I was really just pumping out to a lot of friends about going to see the movie. And I mean, I just lost myself, man. It was emotionally happy for me. Like, I didn't know where I was supposed to be emotionally in the movie. And the movie had so many, like, the message, you know what I mean, from both sides was just so strong and powerful that I was like, damn.
Now, when you say the message from both sides, which sides are you really talking about? What do you mean by that?
T'Challa and Killmonger.
Yeah.
And I also seen the side as somebody who used to be in the military. I see the side from where what's the agent's name? Bilbo Baggins.
Martin Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I like the direction he was coming in because, like I said, being somebody who's been in the military and you deal with a lot of top secret information and
bureaucracy.
Yeah, started finding out new information. It's really surprising that they kind of put that in there to where he was getting, you know, a buttload of information dropped on him in his lap, not knowing. Excuse that was somebody's phone.
Sorry,
but
little gassy.
But I understood that. I mean, I can remember there was a time when, because I was a cop in the military, there was a time when some stuff came down about Mexico before everything with Mexico kind of got crazy. And it was pretty much them telling us, hey, don't go to Mexico because the cartel's snatching Americans up.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's when you get certain type of information like that, you're like, oh, you know, don't want to let everybody know I know that, but, you know, I want to tell my family members, hey, don't go to Mexico, don't do this type stuff. So, I mean, I appreciated that fact, but every point in the movie for me was really, really just informational, beautiful, understanding because I understood where it was coming from. I was just so happy to see it. Especially Killmonger. I mean, can that dude, like, not say... He's pretty much said everything every black person I think was feeling nowadays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I especially as a black man. But I love what they did with the women of Wakanda. They were amazing. It just the whole movie itself, I mean, we could talk about it forever, but the whole movie itself is top notch. Probably, if I had to choose, man, it's like right up there with Winter Soldier for me. Like Winter Soldier is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and that's like right up there. Like they got to be neck and neck.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
It's like Cap and Black Panther driving in the car, slapping each other.
Yeah.
To see who can slap. Like we got 5 miles. Who can slap the most? You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, it was just great, man. It's something I think everybody wants to see, no matter color, creed, religion, you know, whatever. And I think people wanted to see something different. I think people are at this point, you know, like I use Superman for example. I'm not a huge Superman fan.
Is anybody?
Yes.
I know, right?
No one's a huge fan, but everyone likes it.
I do read Action Comics only because I love Lex Luthor. So I mean, I love Lex Luthor. So I read Action Comics, but I get the symbol of hope, having hope, Superman being able to fight over most battles situationally, because I mean, he gets a new power every time he gets a new villain. So it's, but the Boy Scout thing just never really set with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this world's too dark, too gritty to be so good. And I think it's hard to give people the kind of character they relate to. It's not overly good, not overly bad. Like, people want the in-between. They want to feel connected to the character.
There's a human element that seems to be missing in those godlike characters.
Yeah, I'm not from Smallville. I, didn't have the perfect parents. Don't know how to milk a cow. You know what I mean? Like,
I
Like-
find that hard to believe, Mike.
I mean, I love milk, but I don't know how to milk a cow. But, I mean, I think sometimes for people who have grew up with comics and just the stuff that the geekery scene and nerds have, embraced beautifully, from anime to just from multiple things across the board. I think it's hard to almost relate to Superman sometimes. I think that's why there's such a push-pull relationship with Superman fans. Because I'm one of the guys who's like, I want to push Superman off a bridge and hope he don't fly. But at the same time, I'm like, we need him. So
I want to ask, because we've had black superheroes in Marvel movies before. You've got the Falcon and stuff like that. What is it about Black Panther that maybe sets him apart from just seeing those? Not only as a hero, but as a standalone film. What elements that are there that resonate with you as a black man in America?
it's funny you asked me that. I absolutely just watched an interview a few days ago from one of the actors in Black Panther. Actually, the interview from the actress that plays Shuri, Latita Shuri. I forget what her whole name is, but she brought up the point that you see this land uncolonized, untouched, and the fact that you get a portion of Africa that's been unaffected by history, and not just Africans' history, but Americans' history, like the colonization,
Imperialization.
yeah, imperialism, people coming over there doing trade and stuff like that. Like you finally get to see a film where Africa's untouched and the potential it possibly could have had. You know what I mean? Like,
the development.
It begs the question to, like, what would have happened if they would have left the slaves there, or what would have happened if Africa wasn't such a big country that you have so many kingdoms warring against each other and stuff like that. You kind of have that question, like what if? You know what I mean?
What does it look like when a continent, I mean not a country, but a continent's resources are left intact, and the people who inhabit that land are left to develop them using technology from the outside world, but without having their sovereignty usurped a little bit.
And I mean, she also brought up, Africa is one of the richest countries in the world, if not the richest. I mean, Africa gets a lot of bad hype in America, I think, because we look at, about a year and a half ago, there was an African revolution about overthrowing one of the presidents. I don't know what country. I'm not good with one of my African countries. But I mean, we get a lot of the negative side of things, but Africa is really a glorious country. I mean,
there are booming metropolises.
Yeah,
it's not grass huts and safari land that we see on National Geographic. There's booming metropolises. There's an extreme amount of technology in those countries, in the entire continent. And when I think, and I'm speaking as just a white American, this is my perception of Africa as a child, what I saw, and it was not been until my adult life that I've had those perceptions broken, and I realized like what the booming culture and the very present culture, the very now culture that is represented in the continent of Africa.
And I mean, even as a Black American growing up in America, we're made to kind of feel the same way. Like maybe maybe it was the best thing for us to leave Africa. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I mean, we're always made to question. Of course, you got a few people like, oh, let's go back to Africa. I mean, you can never get that period of time back right. But I mean, the ideal of Afrofuturism, just the way the movie was laid out, to where it was so open and untethered to that moment of history, which I truly enjoy, because I mean, I honestly believe most African Americans, Black Americans, I mean, we're tired of seeing movies where we're constantly slaves, or we're hustlers, or we're the bad guys, or we're the third bad guy in the movie. Or I mean, say for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. I like him as an actor, the guy from The Wire that was in Daredevil. He's like the third henchman guy in Daredevil, and I was like, do y'all not know this is what's his name from The Wire? Like this dude's ridiculously evil. Like why not make that character kind of jump from there to there? But I mean, there's not a lot of black villains either. I mean, there's not a lot of good black villains, so to speak. I mean,
or black superheroes for that matter.
yeah. I mean, people. Lately, the past few years, Bendis did a good job of how he resurrected Luke Cage to the comic book scene. Like, I mean, if a white man can write a black man, that man can write a black man. Like, that man can write a black man. He can write any kind of man. But
or a woman. I mean,
yeah.
his
writing with Jessica Jones. Is awesome. I mean, it's just you can tell the difference when somebody is invested into a character, no matter what color they are. But I mean, I think people get caught up with the fact that sometimes you can't tell the difference between a typical black character and a typical black character. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like the example I gave in one of our conversations before with them always giving us the military sidekick black character.
Right.
I mean, you got to have Falcon, War Machine. I mean, I almost feel like sometimes when they can't relate to that character, or they can't get the character to relate to a certain type of audience, they have to throw him the stereotypical bone. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's even with like Spawn. He was Al Simmons, black guy, military. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, give me Al Simmons who's down on his luck, and like, man, the Bills are getting overdue. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So I think it's a lot more. And not to say that Tom McFarlane wasn't invested in Spawn, because he was, but I just think that we want to see more characters we can relate to. Whether it's just I mean,
well, and I can only, and I'm speaking from just a place of as a white man, but if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, it's you don't just want to see one type of black man or black woman done in comics, and that there's a lot to the blaxploitation characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't as black characters come into, they don't have to be extremely muscled up, extremely hyper violent, extremely operating in and for the quote unquote hood.
Mm-hmm.
That you can have characters that do have this sensitive side, that do have a sense of sovereignty, that are able to make choices for themselves by themselves and operate outside of the confines of what we think of as Black America. That can operate outside the confines of that. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. It's kind of one of the ways I feel about Apocalypse. Apocalypse is from Africa, more so around that Egyptian timeline and that Egyptian era. But I mean, I almost feel like Marvel's afraid to say he's black. But I mean, if you look at how they draw him,
well, he's obviously blue.
Yeah, he's got and he's got big blue lips and a big blue nose. I mean, you can tell me Apocalypse is black. I mean, I think for me, like when I went to go see X-Men Apocalypse, which we won't even get into that. No, but I couldn't resonate with Apocalypse coming out of Africa and looking like the cookie cutter white dude. Right. I mean, just the facial features, the expression, and don't get me wrong, there were Persians and people who migrated from other lands to Africa and kind of in that northern Africa area. But I mean, from everything that history tells us, Apocalypse is a black man or an African black man. I mean,
they got Oscar Isaacs, I think, playing. Apocalypse.
Which he's awesome. He's an awesome actor.
I don't know.
He is a beautiful man.
But I mean, I think sometimes a lot of comics companies, creators, writers, artists are afraid to take the extra step. It's always been that thing with even I believe with movies where if you take the extra step, the audience will react better. It's kind of like I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan,
Mm-hmm.
so that Dragon Ball Z movie, the live one, was horrible, but they could have given me one scene of Piccolo and Goku fighting in the air or just jumping all over the place, and that's taking the extra step to give the fans something, to show that, okay, we really did pay attention to the story details and, how the story was portrayed. And, I mean, when you don't do that, and then like you get Marvel movies or DC movies who take the extra step, like, man, we're going to make Batman jump from this building to this building and then drop this dude on his legs. And then, I mean, it was like, thank you. You know, but I think you have to take the extra step nowadays with these movies, with the writing, with the creativity, because the extra step is for the extra people who don't have that voice.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Well, and so you mentioned we brought up movies, and I know just from being friends with you for such a long time, and you kind of come out of the same comic book fandom that I do. But our podcast is about other areas of fandom. So but one of the reasons that we're wanting to do this, because it is February, it is Black History Month. Tell me a little bit about what it's like being, and specifically, a black fan of these things. Where you've seen the good kind of representation at, where you've seen the bad kind of representation at, where fan culture in general is that have room to grow or to open up to more people.
And maybe any current books that you're reading that resonate with you.
Oh yeah, or films.
Man, I sad to see Bendis go, of course, but man, he left Spider-Man, Miles Morales on such a good note. Like that book has been amazing, and like I said, I don't know what it is about Bendis. Didn't somebody tell me he has
a black daughter, I believe.
Okay, yeah, he knows how to write black characters, and I mean, and it's just not. And I don't want to just be like, hey, you need to know how to write certain type of characters, but the fact that he does his research on the dialect, the slang, the playfulness between friends with him and Genki, and just stuff like that, because Genki being a minority as well,
right?
I love like Pac, right? Amadeus Cho. I love Cho. You know what I mean? I like to see different faces. I don't want the typical guys running around looking like Sentry, Hyperion, Superman, of course. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We've got it's the same on the flip side of the coin when you got Blue Marvel and Icon. I mean, they're supposed to be our black Superman, but it's just like make it more realistic, which like the Ultimates were. The Ultimates, great team, really diverse team. American Chavez on there, Black Panther, Blue Marvel, Spectrum, Captain Marvel was on there, and they're running around helping Galactus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was just a great dynamic of different type of layers of color and character, and I think that sometimes it's hard to get right because it just is society. You can't always get a certain character right, but I feel like like when Marvel did Luke Cage was a big deal because it was in Harlem. Luke Cage is a really grounded street character, but it's hard to take it's not hard to relate to Luke Cage, but it's hard sometimes to take serious because Luke Cage is really the guy fighting against the stereotype.
But yeah, he's rooted in blaxploitation film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even in the series with the hoodie. I mean, we all knew what that was from. We all knew that that was from what led from Trayvon Martin to people understanding the strength and the power of what the hoodie means now. You know what I mean? It means something completely different now. But I mean, Luke's character is based off battling against stereotypes ever since he broke out of jail. Like that's his main thing, is constantly battling stereotypes. I mean, hell, the man doesn't even curse. I mean, shit, I cuss more than Luke. And I'm like, I literally read the pages, and when they, they blank out the words or they put little
Sweet
stuff down.
Christmas.
Yeah, I'm like, nah, Luke, say motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, but he's a good example of a character who has grown from the stereotypical black character. One of the characters I probably had the biggest problem with was Rage. I don't know if you guys know.
From the New Warriors.
Yeah, like I like Rage. Recently, he was in Sam Wilson's Captain America, but Rage is a typical angry black man.
Right.
Like his character is based off the angry black man. I mean, it's obvious. It's like, man, come on now. Like this dude's like as big as Luke, wearing a luchador mask and beating up people in the hood, like angry black man. Like
in the same way, Misty Knight represents a lot of the threatening, sassy black women.
Yeah, yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with being an assertive, sassy black woman. I love assertive, sassy black women. But there's more than just that character.
Yeah, yeah. No, which I think people need to see. Which is why Black Panther is such a moment in history, because it gives you that. It gives you you get the strong the strong women. You know what I mean? Like I almost feel like, you know, Wonder Woman set the precedent for strong women, and then Black Panther's just gonna like push it over the hills. Like it's like we want to give you strong women who can do as much, say as much. And I mean, that for me, that's important. I have a daughter, so I mean, for me, that's just super important for her to have people besides me to be like, oh, that makes so much sense. I can do this. I can say that. I can be this. And excuse me. I mean, but I want her to see that. I don't want her to have to look at me and be like, oh, Daddy, you got to be my, you know, my hero. I want to be the hero, but I want her to have other aspirations of where she grabs inspiration from those aspirations. So it's one of those things. I'm proud that she can have something, and I'm proud that other kids can have something to where, you know, they'll like it. And I mean, besides that, Black Panther's badass. I mean,
Right, he was.
I mean, and there's of course you can go like, oh, he's the Marvel's version of Batman. No, he's actually better than Batman. I mean, this dude has a whole fucking country. Batman's got a company, and I mean, granted,
Well, and he also has superpowers.
yeah, exactly. And granted, I mean, I do like, for say, when Batman went to Africa, got bat wings, stuff like that. But it, you know, it was just, it wasn't organic for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the new Batwing is Lucius Fox's son.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's not an organic transition of Bruce being like, I want you to, you know what I mean? Like, I like the fact that Lucius went out of his way to prove something to Bruce, like, I can be Batman. I can help you. But I mean, it's just, I think sometimes they don't throw a black character in there and it's not organic enough. You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
So it
doesn't necessarily stand on its own, maybe.
And I think that's not. I think that's really the more problem with diversity in comics is the transition isn't always organic. So that's why fans truly get upset. It's not the fact that you just throw somebody into the costume. It's the fact that you're like throwing them into a costume and not really giving us a chance to learn, to grow, to like this character.
I think
You know
that's
what I mean?
a really, really good point.
I do too.
So, you know, and I think that's what the problem was with Riri and Sam taking over Cap's spot. It's just it wasn't organic. Like, give me an arc where Sam is like battling with his own thoughts, saying like, "Damn, can I live up to what Steve did?"
Well, and there have been. I feel like there have been arcs like that, but there's also been arcs where they weren't that great.
Yeah,
But, you know, going to that, though, and talking about Cap, when Bucky took over as Cap, there was 2 story arcs before he would ever even take the shield because he didn't feel worthy. Yet, as soon as they were ready for, Cap said, let's make Sam, there wasn't that, and I think this is what Mike's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't kind of that organic, I'm going to struggle with being this character. I don't know that I should be that character.
Yeah.
Same as when Batman died, you had all these people fighting for the cowl, but no one really wanted to be Batman. It was somebody, they just knew somebody had to be because of that whole expectation of living up to it. But then it makes it feel shoehorned a little bit when there's not that. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No. Like, I can give you another example. As a fan and a geek / nerd of something, and I know Sean will respect this. So, like I said on last podcast, I'm a big wrestling nut. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Even in stuff like that, where wrestlers are meant to look that superhero type, villainous type, where they look to have caricature about themselves. Black characters in wrestling have struggled the same as black characters in comic books. We've had the Ron Simmons, the Kamalas, the Rocks, stuff like that, but it's always spaced out. Like, there's never a long storied black contender who's always battling for the title, who's always the main event guy, always the guy who's like, these 2 guys are fighting, I'm about to come out here and I'm about to beat their ass too. Like, it's for some reason they always want to kind of give us the street characters.
Yeah, or they're always used for the heel, which is really annoying to me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, The Rock is one of those type of characters, him being black and Samoan, because he kind of looks a different way. Because obviously he's mixed. They were able to use him better than, like, per se a Ahmed Johnson,
Right.
or Mark Henry, who's that dark skinned black beastly looking guy. You
I
know
mean,
what I'm
with
saying?
Mark Henry, didn't they even give him somebody to talk for him for
Yeah,
a while?
yeah.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, until he developed his own character. But like, I believe Mark Henry did have the title at one point, but it wasn't until he kind of became. He was a heel. I don't
Yeah.
think he held the title when he
Yeah.
was a babyface at all. The House of Pain or whatever
Yeah.
they call it, the era.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, New Day.
Yeah.
Pure fan speculation, but I still firmly believe it holds true. Like when they started, if any of you follow wrestling, know who the New Day are. They're a very fun, almost nerdy, nerd culture kind of group.
They have the trombone, right?
Yes.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And he broke out the Final Fantasy Victory music when they first
yeah.
started this. But if you go back and watch their debut, and let's face facts, unless I'm mistaken, WWE's written by a bunch of old white guy wrestlers.
Yeah.
They were power of positivity, a Southern Baptist church choir-esque coming out to them, and it was corny as hell. And when that didn't work, big surprise, they kind of let them do their own thing, and have now 3 black men running their own kind of gimmick, and it's blown up. It makes them so much
Yeah,
money.
it's like Sean said. They're really in tune to geekdom. They're really in tune to. I mean, they come out different costumes. I mean, they came out dressed as Super Saiyans at WrestleMania.
I was there. Yes.
I mean,
out of a giant box of their own cereal.
Yeah, bootios.
Bootios.
Makes a booty good. I think that's.
I'm not even going to correct you. That's better.
but I mean, they've transcended themselves. I'm a big wrestling fan like Sean, and you know in wrestling when a guy's time is almost up with a company because the character just ain't selling with the fans. And individually, none of their characters were selling. Kofi, him being there the longest, he was just he's one of the guys where I was like, man, this guy deserves a chance at some type of title. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, they've gotten titles now, but individually you can tell that the company didn't know what they were doing with these guys. These guys super athletic, super big guys, muscular guys, can do just about anything, but you can tell they just didn't know how to utilize their blackness, so to say. And give it to the audience in a way that the audience can resonate. They put them together, and next thing you know, those dudes blew up. And I mean, and that's a testament to their character, but at the same time, a testament to the grind. And
You just said a phrase, and I want to ask you about it and get you to elaborate about it, just in general of being a fan of things, and outside of nerd culture, anything. You said being able to utilize their blackness, and I think that's important. And I'd like you to kind of extrapolate on that a little bit, what that necessarily means to utilize your blackness and to have a company utilize the blackness of a character versus to have a company work around or subvert the blackness of a character to make it more accessible to, I mean, in all honesty, white America or to white people.
I guess for me, when I say that, I don't say it as a term as using like I'm not saying it as a term of like, oh, Black Power or nothing like that. I'm saying it more so as for me personally, I'm the type of guy where I know how people view stereotypes, but I'm mentally savvy, so I will use my stereotype any way I want to. I guess for me, how I use my blackness is by kind of taking everything that was negative and flipping it on its head. You know what I mean? Per se, when I was in the military, I'll give you an example of walking in the mall. I was there super early because I was trying to get in and get out, and had this lady walk by me, man. She seen me, clutches a purse. For one, I know I'm a big dude. Big dude. Man, I had a white beater on. I was like fresh out the gym. I knew I probably was looking crazy. And I mean, immediately, I'm like, I walk by, I'm like, bitch, I'm not going to take your purse. I can buy that shit. It was funny, though, by the time I got to the car, because I was like, you're scared for no fucking reason when it's probably the white guy standing outside is probably about to run by and snatch your purse. And guess who's probably going to help you? It's probably going to be this guy that you got so scared of.
Well, I mean, at the time, like you said, you were an MP.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
But even then, I mean, there was always a battle within the military, and because at some places, it's not every place, but there are good old boy systems set up in place. And I use my blackness then there too, because they would always hit me. As I'm learning these things, learning these rules, learning these laws, they're always like, oh, this ain't the ghetto. And I'm like, you don't even know I'm in the ghetto. I may have not came from the richest parents or family in the world, but that don't mean I came from no damn ghetto. I had to use that and take that, flip it on his head, And sometimes give them the angry black man. Sometimes give them the ghetto Michael or the ghetto Castro, or give them what they thought they knew. And then when they're like, oh, he's like, yeah, you prefer me to be this guy instead of this guy. So why don't you cut all that BS that you've been talking about, ghetto this, ghetto that out, and I can be this guy full time, and we can have a good life. You know what I mean? So I think for me, for using my blackness, I use the tools that people have laid out through negativity to turn into something positive. And I think each individual person has that. I think, even with white stereotypes, I think that people can use that in a positive way to turn it on its head. And I think people are just afraid to have these conversations that we have, which, I mean, the four of us, usually anytime I'm around y'all, we always have good conversations about anything, politics to comics to whatever. I think it's hard I think there's a new generation of people coming together that aren't even worried about color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's easier to talk amongst each other. But you got cats who are either older than the four of us, who are still in that age where they're just like, I don't know if I can have a conversation with this guy.
Or you have people who are our age that grew up in very
secluded kind of life.
Yeah, a little bit homogenous culture. Rural Arkansas is, for us, it's still, in a lot of ways, it's still segregated. Yeah. Not enforceably segregated, but in many ways it is. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how to bridge those gaps between cultures without saying, well, you're not like me, and because I am who I am, my culture is better than yours, so I have to look down on you. And for Sean, as a biracial man who's married to a black woman who most people would assume is white, but is married.
Sean, not.
Yeah.
No.
Sean is white and Colombian.
Yes,
but most people just kind of default him as white, but he's married to a black woman.
Yeah, because most people, if you don't look and sound like Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong, you ain't Hispanic to a lot of people down south. Sorry, there are white Hispanics out there, people.
It's
somebody hit this guy's default button.
It's hard to bridge those cultural divides, but it's something that has to be done, and it's hard to bridge them without trying to figure out which one is more valid. And the truth is that both are valid.
You hit on something about segregated but not segregated. I guarantee you we could ask Castro, and he could list 5 or 6 cities that he knows he shouldn't be in after dark in Arkansas. So it's still there, people.
He works in one of them.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely do. I work in a place where they won't even allow the white people to have BET. That is crazy. That is crazy. But don't get me wrong. Even black people don't watch BET that much. We know it sucks. So, hell, we could have told y'all that before y'all signed up for y'all cable provider. BET sucks now. It don't have no music videos. There ain't no uncut videos where you see a lot of ass shaking. It's just not the same anymore. For me, it's sad in a way that there's this mind frame that stuff is still so segregated, but at the same time, it's up to the people. It's up to you can't call yourself fighting against the system if you're comfortable in the system. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people out here in our particular area, and I'm not saying everywhere, but just in our particular area from where we're living at and, podcasting from, people won't put the fight up because they feel like the fight's not going to do anything because they've lived in this system for so long and they're comfortable living and dealing in it. And for me, I'm not. And that's why I appreciate you guys a little bit more all the time that we talk and, we BS and stuff like that, because I get to see, the side of the Colombian half-breed guy with the default with the default white button and my gay husband right here, Caleb. You know what I mean? Because we got a little black child together, and that's the guy I was calling my son that was checking out, by the way.
It was Tyler. He's got another interview that we just did with him a while ago.
And Craig, you know what I mean? Craig's been like one of the nicest dudes I've met in a long time. And, I honestly had an honest conversation with his wife when he was out of town. And, it's hard to come by meeting good people, just naturally good people who can look past your faults and look past, stereotypes and look past, stuff that they think they know about you, but probably don't, and would rather ask you than to assume. It's, I take it back to the time that me and you met, Caleb, where, when you said something about being gay, and I was just like, oh, well, I'm black. You know what I mean? Nice to meet you. You know what I mean? Type stuff. But I mean, I think when people can come together and not even worry about the if, ands, or the buts, it makes the conversation a lot more easier. But I mean, you can't do this with everybody, of course. But
well, no, but you can strive to.
Yeah.
And so, I've always been a big fan of the phrase, "If you want to see the change, or if you want to see the change, be the change." That's kind of where I operate from in life, and so I look to try to break down those boundaries, and I look to try to have those hard conversations.
mm-hmm.
And with these interviews, one thing I was worried about, because we're interviewing our friends of color and stuff. Somebody could come along and say, "Oh, well, you're just doing that whole white liberal thing." Well, I've got a black friend, and I don't want that to be perceived as what we're doing. But we have a platform here a little bit. We have a podcast that we've built up, and we've got a listenership that we do want to bring other voices that don't have that. You've got a hip hop thing going on. You've got your own platform, but we want to bring in that diversity of voices to our podcast that bring it out. And we also don't want to do that thing where we speak for other people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love calling you guys friends, is because I know if we were all to go out, everybody would be like, "Who the hell are those guys? Like, how do we all know each other?" Because we look different, we talk different. I mean, we've got
me, you, and Craig go out. We look like gay, black, and bald.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, and,
He ain't lying, guys.
and I mean, as long as I've known Sean, he's been down with the swirl. So I mean, shoot, it's all about Oreo cookies over there. So
Cookies and cream, y'all.
So I mean, I've always been the person. I love diverse groups, even when it comes to my music. As much as I love giving my music to my people, black people, excuse me, whatever. I love having fans. I've got fans in Germany. I got fans Korea. I love having different fans. I want to hear different voices. I want to hear different people, talk to me about music or ask me questions about it. I mean, it's the same thing with comics. Like, I don't look like the typical comic book nerd. I mean, I look like a ghetto bodybuilder. Like, you know what I mean?
Says the guy with a giant Captain America shield on
and
his
a Groot
arm,
tattoo
and a Groot on his hand. He doesn't look like a typical.
But I mean, that's for me. That's always the icebreaker, which I love. Like, I mean, I do come off as a really just oh my god, I don't want to talk to this guy. I know how I come off, and I mean, most of the time I'm just really focused, and I'm headed.
I'm kind of, just for me personally, I'm kind of sorry you feel that way though. Like, I'm sorry you have to feel that way.
Well, I mean, I think honestly too, which I liked about the Black Panther movie is you have to, as a black man growing up in America, you have to have a protective mind state. Like, you always have to be on guard, and it's just, I think Black Panther touched on that only because of so much stuff that's been going on in the world, from stuff with civil rights, women's rights. Just, rights all around the corner, but you have to have a protective mind state. You know what I mean? Like, you have to always be on guard. I mean, and then, like I said, I was in the military, so I'm always paranoid. I'm always looking over my shoulder, never taking the same route home. But it's just because I feel like I have to have that mindset, because there's still people out here thinking that I'm the enemy.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm behind ally lines, but you still treat me as the enemy.
Let me just touch on that, people. This is a man that went to Afghanistan for how many tours?
I think I was in the military 8 years. I was gone every year.
And feels like an enemy in his own country. I just let that sink in for a minute, people.
It is.
Not
to step in.
That's heavy, man. That's
really
heavy stuff, and that's one of the reasons that I'm glad we're kind of doing this.
No, I mean, and like I said, I think there's more than just me who feel that way. But it's just, it takes time to find the right people to open up and have that conversation with. I mean, because you can't have it with everybody, because everybody's not gonna care. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's why I get lost in comics, because a lot of stuff relates to my personal struggles, my mental struggles, which is one reason I love Moon Knight, because I feel I'm as crazy as Moon Knight.
Can we work on being as rich as Moon Knight?
I know, right? I'm trying, but
where you can be that crazy and just still be rich.
I know, right? But I don't know how that guy does it. He's got his own cab company, and movie company. Yeah, I know, right?
So let's get away from fandom just for this last little part, and to talk about the broader implications of what Black History Month means. And I know that's I don't know another way to ask that question, but that's always what did the white guy ask you? Oh, you asked me what Black History Month means.
Yeah.
But talk about the implications of it and how it's still important. A lot of people look at from the white perspective, and I say this because I grew up and live in Arkansas, and I've heard white people say these things. I've heard my family say these things, like, "Oh, well, we don't need those things anymore. We live in a post-racial society." Oh, you've got BET, you've got you've got Martin Luther King Day, you've got all this stuff, and that stuff. When I hear that now, it really makes me grit my teeth and want to just beat the shit out of somebody. But why is that? Explain to them, like talk to me like I'm dumb. Explain to me why that's still important and what that means to you today.
Well, that's actually a good question. Man, honestly, Black History Month, the reason why it's still here in my eyes is because it's still the same fights going on. Still the same conversations, same fights, it's history repeating itself over and over and over again. I mean, it's the moment you want to, if people want to get rid of Black History Month, let's get rid of all the BS that made Black History Month what it is. You know what I mean? Like you want to get rid of the ideas of, oh well, Martin Luther King is just another guy. Okay, well, start going out. That's my phone. I'm sorry, y'all. Start going out. Start living your truth. Be an activist. Learn about what's going on in Black history. It's always a question too that a lot of white friends bring up to me is like, so celebrating Black History Month is good, but I can't celebrate my white history. No, nobody's saying that. We're just saying that the reason this month is still around is because the BS that Black people still deal with is still around.
Well, and I'll say as a white man, it's BS because by default, white history is celebrated every day of the goddamn year.
Yeah.
Well, what are you celebrating is what it comes down to. Yeah. You're not talking about a group of people from the same place. You're talking about people from all over the world that make up white culture, whereas you're talking about a community in America that come from the same roots when you're talking about Black history. Go celebrate German History Month. Go celebrate whatever, but you don't have to take away from something else to get that, and I think that's a big problem.
And then not only that, with the way school systems are going now, it's like they don't want to tell you who did what, and it's not about, oh, we did this, y'all did that, we did, but tell them, hey, yeah, a Black inventor came up with the gas mask. A Black inventor came up with the first recipe for ice cream.
Peanut butter.
Exactly. A Black inventor came up with the very first cell phone. Tell them about stuff like that. Black inventors made a lot of stuff that they don't get credit for.
Yeah.
And it's because somebody may have came out, tweaked the invention a little bit more to be better, but tell them who designed it, came out with it first, stuff like that. Give that family its props so it can make its money. You know what I mean? So that family can survive. But if we're able to, I feel like if we can share ideas across the board, it should be an easy conversation to have about the stuff that's going wrong. You know what I mean? So, and for people who don't like Black History Month, hell, go out there and help your community change the stereotypical nonsense.
Well, man, I really want to thank you for sitting down with us and having, man, and not just today, but all the time, and having these conversations and bringing that perspective and opening my eyes to a lot of things and being willing to talk to me and talk to all of us about what your experiences are. Not just in blackness. I'm not going to relegate you to just being a black guy. You're also a huge fan. You're my Greg Pak brother. You're my Hulk brother. You and me, it crosses so many of those lines, and that's the thing is, it's not a post-racialism thing, but once you get to know somebody, you stop seeing the things that you maybe got that first impression of, and you start seeing somebody as a person, and you can start to relate to them, and nerddom is a great way to do that, because you can start to relate to somebody as you both enjoy the same characters, and you both enjoy the same writers and the same television shows, and you end up just building a friendship that goes beyond those cultural divides and breaks it down and blends it and doesn't erase it. It doesn't. And that's the thing is, if you think that the future and what diversity should do is erase those cultural divides, then you need to bounce out with that shit, because that's not what it does. It doesn't erase anything. It celebrates it and incorporates it.
Yeah.
It doesn't appropriate it. But,
people need to. I feel like if people could think more like us, they would understand that in the next few years, this might be altered carbon for real. Like, I might wake up in a white man's body. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not tripping. As long as the package is good, I'm not tripping. So, I could wake up in somebody else's sleeve soon. So I mean, peace, love, happiness, all that good stuff, man. Good friends, good books, and like I said, I love y'all like brothers, man. And,
We love you too, man.
you
So
know,
I want to put you on the spot for this last little thing. Give the folks out there listening one person to Google for Black History Month.
one person to Google for Black. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm gonna go from somebody that I studied and did a lot of reports on while I was in school. Paul Lawrence Dunbar.
Paul Lawrence Dunbar. Go Google him, guys.
Yeah, great poet, inventor. Had a lot of books come out, a lot of writing. One of the first black men to have his poetry and have his writings published. I forget what city because it's been so long since I've actually studied them, but that was somebody I constantly did reports on in school about. Somebody I actually looked up to when I actually discovered a lot of his work. But Paul Lawrence Dunbar, definitely look him up.
And we are back with another interview. We have today my good friend Quincy Lloyd, as well as my lovely wife Vanetta Hockaday.
And I'm Craig, and that's Sean.
Yes, this is Sean taking over the interview duty. As you see, I've already messed up, and this is going down the drain really fast.
Caleb has abandoned us for this one because he had to go do something like pick up his dog or something. But anyways,
We are scared and alone, but we're going to do our best here. So we brought you two on here just to talk. We're doing a Black History Month episode, and we just like to get your input. People of color in a nerdom, in a fandom. How has that affected your lives? Like, what is it like? Just we can't really associate with that as we're not in that situation. Quincy, why don't you start us off?
Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I grew up here. I've been reading comics for a very long time. It's been, I would say, kind of hard to find people like myself reading or interacting with comic books and stuff like that. So to finally see something and get something that represents all this that we can all get into has been real nice. I've enjoyed it.
And we're talking about Black Panther.
Well,
We're referring to the Black Panther movie.
right, Black Panther.
Yeah.
And pretty much comic books in general, because we've always been like the sidekick or somebody in the background, but it's nice to see somebody front and center. I didn't really have that much as a kid. Maybe here recently they've really been churning stuff out, but before you didn't get that.
Right.
Yeah.
And Vanetta?
Hi, I'm Vanetta, and I'd like to say that every month for me is Black History Month, 365 days a year. But I've been reading comics since I was 6 years old. I'm 43. And my oldest brothers introduced me to it because I kind of idolized him and did whatever he did. It started with like Archie comics, and my mom read like Betty and Veronica, and I always read the Sunday comics. As I got in like middle school, my oldest brother told me that Marvel Comics was the best because DC sucks. So I only read Marvel, like Morbius, Spider-Man, X-Men, whatever he was reading. I was reading G.I. Joe. So, but it's definitely something I didn't advertise. I definitely kept it until recently, not until I met Sean, who's really brought me out of my shell. But like we saw Black Panther last week, and I loved it. And I was talking to my husband, and I was thinking that I don't think I ever remember a black superhero movie. I was like, well, Blade and I don't know, Fat Albert. Do you consider Fat Albert a superhero?
There were a handful, Blank Man. And
I'm sure Fat Albert's a hero to somebody.
I've always loved superheroes and cartoons, and like Quincy said, you don't really find many black people that are like us, right. But I'm sure now with Big Bang Theory, it's considered very kind of, it's okay to be a nerd. I am a nerd. I'm not a geek. I have social skills, but and I'm a hot nerd. I like to say that. But yeah, I started reading Archie, and I still read Archie comics, the original.
Right. That's where I started out, was reading Archie comics and the Sunday strip.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've still I read Archie comics all the way up until real recently. I guess they had the run where he died. So that's, but being as a little kid, I used to buy, like, they used to come in larger, like, compilations, and all that stuff. And I used to get that. I get an Archie comic book, and I might get an Avengers or a Punisher next to it.
Right. And I read Conan too. Conan, because my brother was was really into it.
Awesome. So you've had experiences with comic books and nerdom all your life, but it's like now and today, or like, have you ever felt like, has there ever been like issues ostracizing growing up being a nerd? You know, growing up, has there ever been any issues like that? Have you encountered, how have you dealt with that being not only just a nerd growing up, but maybe even a black nerd?
Yeah, I used to get teased for reading comic books and all that because we didn't too much allowed because it didn't have too much of us in it,
Right.
And stuff like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seemed so much fun when you guys play it. Couldn't play it when I was a kid. Mom was like, "Oh no, it's devil worship. You can't do that and stuff like that." We just didn't have a really good idea as far as like the history of what it really was.
Right.
So you just kind of had to go off to the side and read your comic books. You couldn't like, "Hey, why don't you check out this new so and so?" They wouldn't. You couldn't do it.
Okay.
I definitely kept it to myself. I did not advertise it at all. It was something, that was between my brother and I that we just did at home. I didn't bring comic books to school. I was in middle school reading Cosmopolitan, which is complete trash. I read Cosmo and a Glamour and not Harlequin, like those really hardcore romances with Fabio on the front cover, sixth grade. But at home, I was reading that and comics, reading whatever my brother was reading.
So you guys both touched on Black Panther, and maybe just delve into that a little bit about what that meant for each one of you as a person of color, if it, how it affected you, and did it mean anything more than, let's say, another superhero movie?
I was just so excited, and honestly, I would have been excited if the whole cast was Latino or if they were Indian, just to see, something different. But I've been yelling Wakanda for life since we saw the movie and calling Sean a colonizer. But
she has repeatedly. Guilty.
But I loved it. I love the makeup, the hair. I love the costuming, the acting. Chadwick, his dialect coach is awesome because he definitely has that South African accent. And I was very entertained and I enjoyed it. It was fun.
I thought it was a really great movie. Took my friends out to see it, took the kids out to see it. We all had a good time. It is nice to have a movie that has representation that you've had your superhero movies with black people in them before, right?
Right.
And they're kind of treated like, joke, funny movies, and, watch them, and I guess they're only for, like, a certain audience, right? But this movie wasn't just a black movie. This movie, just happened to have black people in it. It was good. It was under the guise of having a Marvel movie. Yeah. Everybody could go see it.
And it shows that, and this has been proven before, that you can have a movie with predominantly black cast, and everyone's going to be in. I mean, Tyler Perry has proved that. I mean, there's been other movies. You can have a movie with an entire Latino cast or Filipino or whatever. It's the story. People connect to the story.
Right. Absolutely. And like I said, it's definitely become a cultural phenomenon. It's breaking box office, and that shows.
It's getting. We talked about this earlier in a different interview. It's getting Star Wars type numbers, which you just don't see. I mean, yeah, you see it in the first Avengers movie, but in a regular phase MCU movie, they get good numbers. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, 220 million, I think, for the opening weekend. I mean, that's huge. That says something to me that this is resonating with people for whatever reason, and it's obviously cross culture that it's resonating with people.
So like I said, had your thoughts on Black Panther? Are there any? And it is a movie based on a comic book. Are there any comics you read a lot? Anything you want to give a shout out to? Anything that resonates with you?
Yeah, I'm still reading Spider-Man. I'm still reading Miles Morales.
Oh yeah.
Other than that, I think the ones that I really enjoy, you guys have already mentioned, like Saga, and I want to say, have you mentioned Chew?
We have not, and we've been negligent on that because Chew is a fantastic, or was a fantastic book.
That's on them because I've never read Chew.
Oh,
Chew is amazing. I don't think Caleb has either. I loved it though.
So it's Craig's fault.
It is my fault. I take blame.
I kind of hate that it ended. I guess they were. I'd heard that they were planning to have a TV show. I wonder where that's
Yeah,
at.
it was supposed to be Glenn from Walking Dead was
Yeah.
supposed to be the
Well,
show lead.
Yeah, and then they optioned it as a cartoon as well.
I would have watched that.
I would have
also.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sad. So I mean, I don't know that it's dead, but they certainly haven't done anything yet with
that
it. So.
Flintstones, was it DC Hanna-Barbera Flintstones thing was awesome.
Was so amazing.
Yeah.
I
Right?
had to read that. Remember,
Oh my
I
gosh. Yeah, I enjoy that, and I would recommend it to anyone. If,
Mhm.
if someone wants to borrow something out of the collection,
is it a
Flintstones.
one shot? The Flintstones.
I want to say it's only 6.
It's 12 issues.
Oh, 12
it was
issues.
two
It's pretty
trades.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk about some of your comics, babe?
I tell you, comic shop news just sucks me in because Sean he gets his comics, he's just like, throws it away. I read that thing, I'll take it to work and read it during lunch, back to front, and I have a pen and I'm circling stuff I want to read, and I'm like, this is getting expensive. You need to dial it on down. But I read a lot of graphic novels. Sean got me. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, as a kid, I've read some graphic novels. Habibi is excellent. We got married 6 months ago, so I hadn't read a lot, and I think I have cataracts because my eyesight is awful. I can't see. I'm desperately trying to get in to see an eye doctor. I haven't read anything in a while, but Moon Girl, Jim, Saga, Walking Dead.
I know you liked Gail Simone's run on
Yes,
Batgirl.
I love her. I think she's amazing. She needs to write like a script for Hollywood, like a live action. She's so amazing. I love her. And Bruce Timm is my favorite. Well, he's done animation, but I have like Bruce Timm underwear with Catwoman and Batman on it. I just love that it's simple, but it's not easy to draw like that and make it work. And I love his work.
All right. So there is a subject I'm purposely throwing out here just to see a little between you two. If I'm not mistaken, BT had produced a Black Panther cartoon a while back.
Yes, they did.
Okay, this is as good as I remembered it. Hoped. Quincy, you were not a fan.
I was not a fan of the artwork at all.
And Vanessa, you were a big fan.
I loved it.
Go.
It was kind of I just loved the and it was quality actors. I mean, you had Jill Scott, Alfred Woodard. These were like, it was kind of like the stop motion, like panel by panel.
Motion comic style.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I just and I love the theme song. I don't know the words because it's in some type of dialect, an African dialect, but I'll just make up stuff and just be like, "Uki me, tiki tuka, tiki tu tu do 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 do." And I'm like, Black Panther, get out my face. So yeah, I loved it.
Your thoughts?
I did like the actors in it, right? But I couldn't get through that stop motion style. Oh my gosh! It was
okay.
Yeah, it was everything. Just I was waiting for the word bubbles to pop up.
Yeah, it didn't bother me that. And I watched it was on Netflix, and I would be at his old house, and he'd be at work. I had spent the night or whatever, and I would watch Black Panther on Netflix, and I loved it.
It made me feel like it, as great as it was, and the people they paid money to be there, right? They could have spent more money on it.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you wish it would have been an actual full animated
Right,
show.
they could have. Even with the art, it was different than what you would see from like an X-Men card, like old school X-Men cartoon.
Right.
It was like from the page. It was from the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the art's a little bit harder, but to see that move and people talking fluently, that would have been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, all right. I just wanted to see what would come of that.
That wasn't quite the throwdown.
No.
We were hoping for our first
Yeah.
on-air
We're
fight.
adults.
Monopoly table flip thing.
Nerds are supposed to fight over stuff. Man, okay, so we are Southern Fried Geekery, which we like to try to believe we encompass a whole lot of different interests. So outside of comics, and is there anything else you guys are really big fans of that either you just love it because it resonates with you or you think it's interesting? Is there anything you want to kind of put out there?
Well, if an 11-year-old girl likes it, I'm gonna like it too. I like cute stuff. So yeah,
Like what's the
Tokidoki collectibles, and I have 1980s strawberry shortcakes, and yeah, if a little girl 11 or 13 likes it, I'm gonna like it too. So.
My daughter's obsessed with that stuff. She gets a box. You know,
Tokidoki.
No, Sanrio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello Kitty
Oh,
stuff. Yeah. And then she has
We're
like
the same age.
she has an account and she gets all that good stuff. She'll go in there, you know, if I give her a little money, she'll buy like, you know, just Sanrio stuff. And then they have that, the Red Panda one.
Yes.
I can't. Agretsuko or something like that.
Agretsuko or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's so excited about that. I'm excited about to watch that. With her. Yeah, I can't wait. You know?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be big.
Yeah.
Hello Kitty is 43 years old. We were born the same year. She was born January 1st, 1974. So it's not for babies.
Like Transformers, like I'm doing the Build Days with you guys, doing the Gundam thing. But I haven't really watched too much Gundam here recently. I tried to watch the Netflix anime with Will Smith's son on there.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
What?
You tried to watch that?
Watch it.
What, the Get Down?
No. He had anime on there, and it had Jesus and Mira on there as far as like I guess Friends, right? And I just could not make it. I was like, well, as a supporter, I guess I'll turn on Netflix and walk away from go shopping. But we need more of that stuff, so you should have at least something there allowed to be mediocre or not so great. Because there's a lot of other stuff that's not so great, and it just goes and goes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to no, that show was not great. You know, but to have it out there and show that people are watching, I'll support it.
Yeah.
Right on.
I would like to say something as far as the comic book industry. I applaud the fact that they want to diversify and they want to have, all represent all different types of ethnicities. I mean, as talented as these writers are, and there's talented people out there just waiting for a break, create something new. Don't make, I don't know, Superman Guamanian or whatever, just, I'm not offended by it or anything, but I'm just like, there's so many talented people out here. People who are waiting for a shot. I mean, come up with a competition and have people submit, ideals or something. Come up with a new superhero. Just don't, change their gender just to change it or change their ethnicity just to try to, you think you're going to get more black readers that way.
Well, I think that, I don't understand what you're saying, right? But you change the genders and sometimes change the race. So that's the only way some people are going to get this stuff, right? That's the only way they're going to pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
You change Thor to a woman. Oh, well, I'll just read Thor until they get rid of her. You're going to change Spider-Man to, African-American, Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just read Spider-Man until they get rid of him, I think that's the only way that some people will pick it up.
But I had an issue of the Comic Shop News, and I saw that there was an Iron Man, and there was a black girl in there, and they were calling her Riri. Her name was Rihanna, I think. And I was like, "What is this?"
So earlier we had another guest on that we spoke to, and he kind of said the same thing as you, and I'm just going to kind of reiterate what he said, and you can speak to whether or not that's what you were meaning. But he had said that what he feels like is sometimes it doesn't feel organic.
Right.
So, for instance, Falcon becoming Captain America, there was no head conversation within Sam's mind, him going, I don't know that I'm worthy of this. He just took on the mantle.
Right, yeah.
There was no organic. It would have been fine to have him as Captain America if it had been kind of an organic transition into
Instead
that.
of snatching them into...
Instead of just... So it almost feels a little shoehorned is what is the way he kind of... that's my word, not his, just to be clear. So maybe, is that what you were trying
Yes, I
kind
feel
of
the
meaning?
same way. There's, I was like, maybe Marvel or DC or Image I love Image. I read more of that than... anything else could maybe just put a nationwide contest out there. Hey, we want to hear your thoughts, hear your ideas, see some artwork, and we're going to pick the top 10 or whatever and then fly you to New York.
That would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's so many people out there who just have the next thing, on the horizon, next big thing, and they're just waiting for an opportunity.
Well, so we've discussed this a little bit, and this is a little off about what you're talking about, but a little off topic of the whole thing, is that it used to be that people would do creator-owned to get started, and then they would get noticed and go to DC or Marvel. Now people are going to DC and Marvel to get a name so that they can go to creator owned and own the rights to their characters. So I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to give their own characters to DC or Marvel because there is a creator-owned market out there for them to take it to. You're seeing a lot more of natural diversity in the independent comics, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's books out there like Alters, which is about a transgendered woman that is also wakes up and gets superpowers one day. And it's because in this world they live in, that's what happens. Some people it's like a mutation. They get it at a certain age. So she's also and her parents hate the superheroes. So not only is she having to deal with being transgendered, but also being a superhero. Just throwing that out there, that I feel like that's while, and you'd said it, Image is really drawing you. I feel like a lot of the creator-owned stuff the new characters are going to creator-owned stuff where they can be a more diverse.
And you think that's what happened with Jeremy Love? I mean, like, treat your writers, treat your artists with respect. Treat them right. I mean, that's how Image got, started in other independent comic books. I mean, don't dog out your artists.
And you mentioned Jeremy Love. That's the Bayou?
Yes. Oh, my God.
We're going to talk about Bayou. Yes,
Bayou just is so original, so good. And there was only 2 trades, and then Jeremy Love was supposed to sign on with DC, and you never heard from him again. It's almost like an Alice in Wonderland. It's set during Jim Crow era in the South, and a little girl, Lee, is, I'll let you read it, Quincy. She's trying to save her dad because he's got arrested for something that he didn't do. And so his time's ticking, he's going to hang. And so Bayou is like a swamp monster, but he's very gentle, very sweet. And, you have rabbits in there that are like Klansmen, and it's so interesting. The artwork is beautiful. He did the artwork. He created the artwork, and I could see that as a movie, live action or animation. And Jeremy Love, if you're out, you need help. I'm gonna help you.
Come on the show.
You need help. You need help with the artwork. You need someone to draw or color. I will do that for you. I have a degree in art. I'll help you.
So that book just stopped.
It just stopped, and
you hate that in comics when the creators, for whatever reason, the book just ends.
That's messed up.
Is there anything else you guys would like to speak about? Because we're really here to hear your guys' take on the fandom.
Well, I guess the whole we were talking about, you had asked us where we kind of ostracized younger reading comics and stuff. And you say you were made fun of. A lot of that, too, is just, if you're, and this is so sad, it's in the 21st century, if you're black and you're well-spoken, you like to read, you make good grades, among your peers, it's looked at as negative. And Quincy and I are both military kids. My dad was in the Air Force for 20 years. I moved around a lot of different people, and went to schools run by the Department of Defense most of my life until I was a sophomore in high school. So that was like my first experience in a real public school. It's like if you're different in kind of way. I mean, if you listen to anything else besides hip-hop and R&B, which I've always loved, rock, heavy metal, if you're...
Good woman.
Yeah, you're like... they said that you're white. You're trying to be, I've been called a coconut or Oreo. And I just tell Sean this a lot, and he doesn't really understand. I was like, slavery has just messed us up. It really has. And but, and that's probably one reason why I hit it. It never even occurred to me to talk about that I read comics or anything. Now, I'm an adult. I don't care, and I'll take them to work and read them. And, people are like, are you reading comics? I'm like, it's a graphic novel. Yeah. Mind your business.
Yeah.
Get some business.
Yeah, it's very hard to hang out and talk with people about, people want to hang out and tell you read comics, and especially when I was growing, grew up on base, but when you go to your regular school and you're mixed with the general populace, we couldn't like, hey, are you reading like Excalibur? Are you reading Nexus? Are you reading Gru or you saw Jimbo and stuff like that, Turtles and stuff? Couldn't find anybody that like us talk that because the way everything's set up, and then like other people look at you crazy from either side because you're sitting there reading comic books.
But when you do find that person,
it's very nice.
And it wasn't until I was in graduate school, 25 years old, and I went to spent a summer in France, went to school, and I met Timothy Lim, who's a local comic book artist here. He's also a professor at UALR, and he had mentioned like Transformers, and I was like, oh my gosh, I used to watch with my brother, and G.I. Joe. My brothers always made me be Destro, and I always wanted to be Snake Eyes, and they wouldn't let me. And my brother would cut out like the dossiers on the back and put them in a shoebox, and I'd always read the dossiers and get excited, Voltron and stuff like that. But once you do find that person, that's how I felt with Sean. I was apprenticing at a tattoo studio, and Sean was the shop manager, and it was early, and he was talking to my instructor and was like, hey, you want to go to the comic book store? And I was like, I want to go. And I was so excited. He's the one who brought me, hey, you want to read this? And I was just there and Watchmen, and he would just give me all these compendiums and stuff, and I would read them, and we would talk about it. We would discuss.
Yeah, for those listening, try giving a girl a trade paperback. You never know what might happen.
It made it work.
Or whoever you would like to.
Yeah.
You can open up doors.
Yeah.
I mean, so as a white guy, I'm about the same age as you, and assuming Quincy, you guys are about the same age. It was a different time. We were teased, but I didn't have the flip side of it of being teased in the cultural side.
Right.
For being a geek. I was teased for being a geek, and oh, you're into Dungeons and Dragons, and you're into comic books, and but it's such a different, it's an added layer that I didn't have to deal with.
Yeah.
And that speaks to me a little bit, that, sometimes you think it's a similar situation, but it's really not, just because there's another layer there, so.
I say, to see, now the Black Panthers out, to see all those people get out there, maybe that other layer, isn't as thick as it used to be. You see all these people out there, we're all going to watch a Marvel movie. Right. People are getting up, putting dashikis on and stuff. You got top tier stars in there. They're getting paid good money. It made crazy money. So maybe this will open up for more stuff in the future.
Yeah.
Like we went through all that, right? My son goes to school and he can talk to anybody about comic books and Pokemon and things like that. Doesn't have that much of a problem. I like that it's moving forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't dare. I was in college and I watched Jim every morning because I missed it when it was big here in the United States because I was living in Germany. I knew what it was. I saw the dolls and stuff. But yeah, I was in undergraduate school, and before I would go to university, I'd watch Jim. It came on USA in the morning. He's singing the song and stuff. I was all about it. But I didn't tell people about that. I didn't tell them I watched Batman, Bruce Timm's Batman and stuff, and I was an adult. I kept that to myself.
So, would each of you like to give somebody that you would recommend for people to Google, maybe a mentor to you or somebody that you looked up to that maybe people need to be more aware of?
Say as far as literature, I think everyone should read Man, Child in the Promised Land by Claude Brown. It's written in the 50s, and it is an excellent, and about this kid growing up in the ghetto, New York, and about him, going through his adolescence and adulthood, and it shows that nothing has changed. The same issues affecting at-risk kids today, the exact same issues back then. And Toni Morrison is, I've read everything she's ever written, and she's my favorite author.
Okay. So, name the book one more time.
Claude Brown is the author, Man, Child in the Promised Land.
Okay, and then Toni Morrison.
Anything by Toni Morrison.
Okay, so get out there and Google those people and get that book and read it because you'll learn something.
I got two that I want to say.
Okay.
You can pick them both out.
Looking. The Fabulous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz, which I've read a couple of his books. They're really good. I like if I can find an audiobook, I'll listen to him because he'll do his own audiobook.
Do you have anything you just want to say to our listeners in words of encouragement or advice or thoughts? Anything you want to give out?
I love everybody.
Awesome. That is great advice. It really just comes down to not being jerks to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
A little more love in the fandom would.
I try to start my day with. I've been reading Luann since I was like in the 3rd grade, and I read Baby Blues every morning, and I watch cartoons every morning because I like to start my Teen Titans Go. I like to start my day off with something fun, cute, and awesome.
Teen Titans Go is amazing.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
I didn't think I would like it, but I love it.
All right. Oh, Quincy, so we're about to wrap up here. Do you have anything you want to say out to all those listeners out there?
Be yourself. Enjoy what you love, and don't be afraid to do it. I mean, you spend all this time reading comic books and hiding and stuff like that. And look where we are now.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, that's great advice. Just
Absolutely.
Be who you are.
Yeah, let your nerd flag, freak flag fly.
And the world's getting safer for that, anyways, for in general. So
Right.
we really appreciate you guys taking your
Thank
time
you for
and
having
coming
us.
on.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all coming on.
Here we are with another interview for Black History Month, and I'm Craig.
I'm Jerry.
We got David here with us, our good friend, and he's going to talk to us a little bit. David, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
First off, my name's David, and I'm a comic book nerd that's also an auto mechanic.
And you're also a cosplayer. Pretty good cosplayer.
Yeah, I also cosplay. Sometimes those things just don't mix.
Listen, don't be modest about your cosplaying. We know you won first prize at a cosplay contest a year or so ago.
Yeah, that was actually my first time actually building a cosplay. So I was actually pretty stoked when I actually won first place.
Yeah, this is a great costume too. Sorry.
No, you're okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, how it was maybe growing up, being a person of color and being in the nerddom and so forth. Did that cause any conflict? Was it pretty easy for you? Was it...
Well, growing up, being a comic book nerd, it actually took some time for me to realize that comic books was where I wanted to be.
Okay.
Because growing up, my family, they were all about sports, football, stuff like that. So in my early years, I was more geared towards being some sort of athlete or something like that. But then certain things in my life happened, and I had to find something else. From that point, I turned to art and music and stuff like that, and then eventually just started down the path of comic books and stuff like that. I think it really started with mangas and animes, and then only recently did it really start. Did I really divulge more into comic books and stuff like that?
So you were just a late bloomer.
Yeah.
So have you seen Black Panther?
I have seen Black Panther.
And what did you think?
I thought it was a phenomenal movie. If I could rate it 10 out of 10, I would.
Okay. So you saw the movie and you really enjoyed it. Did it speak to you culturally, or was it just a fun superhero movie? I mean,
honestly, to me, it was more of a turning point because growing up, there weren't a whole lot of black superheroes for me around because, like I said, pretty late bloomer, didn't really get into superheroes, didn't know that there were black superheroes and stuff like that. Once I figured out that there were, I started to notice that there wasn't as much representation as far as like the movies and TV shows and stuff like that went. So to me, the fact that they actually had an all-black cast and all the actors did such a great job, it was really a turning point for me.
I mean, because there was like Blade and stuff like that, but that was years before. And a lot of people, if you weren't into comic books, you maybe didn't even know that was a superhero comic book character.
And don't get me wrong, I watched Blade. I watched all the Blades. They're also good movies. So was Spawn. It was a good movie as well.
Oh, Spawn. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that in another interview today, and a lot of people forget that he's a black man. You know, they just forget. You never see him after he dies and he becomes Spawn. He's always in costume.
Exactly. I honestly didn't know for the longest time that Blade was based off the comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's not an uncommon occurrence. Really, a lot of people didn't know.
Yeah.
So, in comic books, is there anybody that what are you reading in comics? I guess.
Let's see. In comics, I'm reading Flash. I'm reading Deathstroke. I'm reading Luke Cage before they decide to cancel it. I'm reading Defenders. Reading Jessica Jones. Let's see. What else am I reading? Reading Aquaman. Reading Titans. Teen Titans.
Love your DC.
He does love DC.
I do love DC. Reading Superman. I'm really just a DC fanboy.
Well, I mean, you threw a couple of Marvel in there, but we all have. I kind of do a mix, but most people kind of gravitate towards one or the other for whatever reason. But
And honestly, I have a reason for that. Growing up, I never really related to the Marvel shows that were on TV. You had X-Men and everything like that, but I never could find anything to relate to when watching it. But then, the DC started putting out shows like Static Shock and Justice League and stuff like that. And then I felt like I could relate more to stuff like that. And ever since then, I just gravitated more towards DC and the escapism that it is.
And you're talking the animated shows.
Mhm.
Yeah, because DC really is better at the animated shows than Marvel is. They just,
Static Shock was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the hell out of it.
I really wish that they go ahead and just put out a set, but I know there's legal issues and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hoops that you got to jump through.
So on Black Panther, going back to that, what did you find most enjoyable other than obviously there's a cultural part, but
I honestly, what I felt most enjoyable about it was I felt like I could relate to it, like everything, like the way he and his sister interacted. I felt it felt like something that me and my sister would do. If I became king, it felt like she wouldn't take me seriously, and we just joke around like that. Mother be proud of me and all that stuff. It felt like something that. It felt like I could put myself in that role and nothing would change. And it felt like I could really connect to it.
maybe felt a little organic.
Yeah.
So, and that's something I'm hearing a lot. That I think you're my fifth interview today. So something I've heard a lot is that, it's created by Black people with Black people, but not necessarily for Black people. It's for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But which is what we need. We need more movies, as far as I'm concerned, that are diverse movies, but are inclusive to the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm hearing from this movie. Is that kind of how you felt about it?
Yeah, because it didn't feel like it was a movie made by Black people for Black people. And you can watch movies and tell movies that are like that. And this one, it felt like any other Marvel movie, except it had a little twist to it. And whatever that twist was, they did a good job.
Okay. I think probably by the time this plays, people will have seen it. So don't worry about giving spoilers or anything.
I hope so.
Yeah. I personally haven't seen it yet, but that was because of the convention this weekend. I will be seeing it here shortly. Thoughts on Killmonger? I've heard different things on him.
My thoughts on Killmonger. Michael B. Jordan, phenomenal actor.
And a beautiful man.
Very. He
is.
I seen photos and everything before he really hit the scene with Creed and everything. And
I forgot he was in that.
I really like Rocky movies and stuff like that as well.
That doesn't surprise me.
But he has really devoted himself and changed his body to these roles. And he is doing a phenomenal job. He's doing a phenomenal job as an actor in general. And I'd love to see him grow. But back to the topic, Killmonger. Killmonger was an excellent villain. Probably the best villain I've seen so far that I could actually enjoy.
Had a lot of layers.
Yeah, had many layers. He was one of those villains that you almost want to support because you know what he's trying to do is right on some level, but at the same time the way he's trying to do it is wrong.
The means don't always justify the ends.
Exactly.
And maybe his end plan was right, but his means were wrong.
Exactly. You probably should. You do. And I'd love to see the rest of the world be like Wakanda if that was possible. If Wakanda is a real place, if it is, you guys might want to start helping out. Just saying. But if it was a real place and they did have that technology, I would love to see them help out all these struggling neighborhoods and stuff like that. But probably not in the way that Killmonger was going for.
Another interesting thing that I liked about the choice of them using him for that role was how the MCU has kind of redeemed the Human Torch roles. I saw that online because Chris Evans has become Captain America, and then Michael B. Jordan has become Killmonger, and like they were such like way better roles than those original.
It's like that meme that's going around. You either become the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a better hero or a better villain.
In this case, villain. So, you're into cosplay. You're into anime, manga. Are you reading anything in manga right now that you'd like to get out to the world?
Honestly, the only things that I'm reading in manga that are actually worth it are One Piece and My High School.
My Hero Academia.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. My Hero Academia.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. Just read them. They're both fun. They're both really enjoyable. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, then maybe it's just not for you.
So, looking at the comic, our podcast seems to be a little bit comic book centric. We do other things, but we focus on comic books a little bit.
Yeah.
So going to comic books, how do you feel about representation in comic books right now? Do you feel like it's adequate? Like it needs to be more? Tell me how you feel.
Honestly, I think that the representation in comic books is starting to get better. They could probably do better with the writers utilizing the different characters, not just the black characters, but all the different races of characters. I know Marvel's tried to do, or they still are trying to incorporate different races into their multiverse and everything like that. And it's, to some people, it's not working that great. To some, it is. To me, I like the fact that they're trying. I think that they could do better. But as far as the actual characters that are active that I know of, that I read, like Luke Cage and Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, and Black Lightning, which I haven't read, but I do have the books for.
Speaking of, have you watched the show?
I have not watched the show. I'm terribly behind on all shows.
I got caught up with Ron, who we did an interview on, or you guys did an interview on over the weekend. And they were talking to me about Black Lightning, and I immediately just got caught up. It's really fucking good.
Yeah, I've been hearing that it's really good. I've been meaning to go back and rewatch it on Hulu, but I just haven't had the time. I might do it tonight.
Yeah.
So going back to the comic books where you were talking, so the ones you're reading, Luke Cage, Jon Stewart, Black Lightning.
Which unfortunately I'm not reading Jon Stewart in the Green Lantern Corps. I probably should be. I've heard good things about it. That and the other Green Lantern series. I can't think of what it's called.
It's just Green Lanterns. So you have Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps and Green Lanterns.
Oh, okay.
And then the Green Lanterns book is Simon and Jessica.
Okay.
So it's a Muslim man, black Muslim man, and a Hispanic woman.
Okay.
Which is, it's interesting.
It's good.
Yeah. So do you feel like the ones you're reading, like they're pretty good representations, or do you feel like they're...
The ones I'm reading, I feel like they're pretty good representations. I think the reason that I gravitate more towards Luke Cage is because I feel more of a connection with him. It's more down to earth, more grounded. He doesn't deal with like all the space operas and stuff like that the Avengers and everyone's dealing with.
Right.
He's more out here in the streets trying to just help his fellow man figure out what's going on. Getting drugs off the street and fighting superpowered drug dealers, basically.
Right. Now, one thing you said a minute ago is you said that Marvel's trying, and you feel like they're getting better, but they're missing up the mark a little bit. How do you feel like they're missing the mark?
I feel they're missing the mark because they don't know how to utilize their characters correctly. Like, they just all over the board. I've heard negative things about Marvel, their writing, and just how they're what the direction that they're going is just it's like the stories just don't meet that level of what they used to be.
Gotcha. I mean, and that makes sense, you know. I mean, I think they've made a solid effort, but I think, you know, like all of us, we can all improve.
Yeah.
You know, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with the new leadership that they have. I know they announced some big changes coming up. But
You want to actually tell us about your different cosplays that you've done?
Sure.
And what you're working on? What you've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years that you need to hurry up with?
So my very first cosplay was a Green Lantern cosplay, and I've improved upon that throughout the years. Different suits, different designs of the suit, and it's cost different prices each time that I've upgraded it.
Right, of course.
Then my second cosplay, it was a Mysterio from Spider-Man, and I know you don't really see a whole lot of Mysterio, but I decided to do it because I like the fact that it was abstract. You don't see it, and regardless of how well or how bad I did it, it was original. And then shortly after that, I got my funds together and I did a Nick Fury cosplay, and I mean, it was fun. It was around the same time as Avengers and everything like that, so it was fun, easy. Just get some dark clothes and a leather trench coat and an eye patch.
Right.
And it was fun. Just walk around in a casual clothes, take a couple of pictures here and there, and you got pockets.
Right. I know you've done Luke Cage.
Yeah, I've done Luke Cage, but that's more of like just my everyday wear.
That's your everyday clothes.
Yeah, I think I got maybe like 5 different yellow T-shirts.
Yeah, you literally came to the convention and that's what you were wearing. I was like, oh, David's in his Luke Cage. All he's got to do is like zip up his leather jacket and put an eye patch on, and he could be in his Nick Fury. And did you mention Jules?
Oh yeah, I did. I did
Yeah.
Jules from Pulp Fiction. That was fun. Me and Jerry did. Everyone tried to get me to quote that famous line from the movie.
Oh man,
Go ahead and do it if you still know it.
Oh, I still know it, but I'm gonna let the listeners go and listen to it.
So we interviewed a professional cosplayer last week, Joni Brosis, and she was talking about the challenges of, like, she wants to cosplay the gal from the new Star Trek show, who's a black woman. But, you know, there's that borderline of, can you do it, can't you do it? Have you found that that's been a problem for you if you've wanted to cosplay a white person, or do you just do it and let other people worry about those things?
Honestly, I do find that a problem. Not in the sense that I don't agree with it, but in the sense that there are a lot of characters that I would like to cosplay that I just don't know how I would do it. I'd love to cosplay All Might from My Hero Academia, but I just don't know how I do it.
You just do it, man. Yeah, I support it 100%.
I mean, I get it. I'm for completely different reasons. Being a fat, older, bald man, it's not an easy thing to come up with people for me to cosplay. So I understand that struggle for sure.
But I would say also on that same subject, it's also why I generally gravitate towards, black heroes or black villains or just heroes or villains with masks and stuff like that. That's also why I did a Dr. Fate cosplay and that Mysterio cosplay. They have helmets. You don't know who they are.
That Mysterio cosplay was so dope.
It was.
We had fun on that one.
So do I see a Killmonger cosplay in the future for you maybe, or a Black Panther?
Actually, you might see a Black Panther sometime down the line, but what you'll probably see before that is a Black Manta.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
That's the one I'm waiting for.
I got to figure out how I want to do it. I mean, I have everything done. I have the armor done. I have the helmet done. I just keep running into problems because at the same time as being a cosplayer, I'm also, since I build all my stuff from hand, I'm always learning new skills and messing with new materials. So right now I'm messing with urethane rubber and stuff like that, and it is a very expensive material to mess with. just for 2 gallons, which is 1 gallon part A, 1 gallon part B. It costs $100.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's just a lot.
I mean, that's cosplay life for you.
Yeah, I mean, you spend a lot to get, that recognition from other fans at conventions and win contests or whatever. But it's an expensive hobby for sure.
Yeah, not to mention that when I build my costumes, I try to gear towards mobility, functionality, and to make it look good at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people do Iron Man and War Machine, and don't get me wrong, they look nice. They look real good. I'd love to do a War Machine, but at the same time, I don't like the fact that they can't move in them.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're going to get down on some Super Sentai and Power Rangers and stuff, though.
Only if I can be the Zord.
As long as you give me piggyback rides everywhere.
So do you have any advice you would give a young black kid growing up about being in nerddom, or just in general?
Honestly, the best advice I could give them is just go to your local comic book store, walk around, look at the shelves, look at what's up there, and pick out a book. Honestly, I didn't start reading comic books until maybe about 5 years ago, and that was before I knew that this place was here, before I knew that Kapow Comics was here. If you're in Arkansas, stop by Kapow Comics.
Kapow Comics, Sherwood, Arkansas. Come by and see them. Great store.
But yeah, before I knew Kapow was here, I walked into a competitive comic book shop, and I didn't know what I was buying. I just walked in. I knew I liked the Avengers and stuff like that. So I picked up Avengers Original Sin. And like on your earlier podcast, Craig, I did not start at number 1. I started maybe at 27 or something like that.
Yeah.
Well in the story. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
You just jump in, both feet, and get them wet and see how it plays out.
And then the second thing I picked up was actually at Barnes & Noble, where you can get comic books and trades if you don't know where your local comic book store is.
Good point.
It was at Barnes & Noble, and I picked up an Iron Man trade. It was fun. I loved it. Never been able to find the series that it went to, but it didn't matter. It was a self-contained story.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just came into the comic book store, walked around, picked out what I liked, and after that, the comic book store Kapow helped me out, started a box, and now I don't have to worry about what I want next week because it just comes in.
Yeah. Good advice for anybody. Just go to your comic book store and get the comics.
And
just pick them out on the wall and read them. Is there anything you would just like in general like that, or be heard, anything at all?
One thing I will say, if you don't think, if what you're doing right now in your life doesn't feel right, you should probably stop and reevaluate that. Because it took me a long time to realize that what I was aiming for wasn't really me. And only recently did I realize that, hey, I like comic books. I like all this. I like cosplay.
Building models.
I like anime. I like building models. I like everything that if you saw me in person does not agree with me. I mean, I'm an auto mechanic. My hands are always dirty. If you saw the places I work, the things I do, you would not associate being a nerd with me. You never know. You should give it a try if what you're doing doesn't feel right.
Try something different.
Yeah, try something different.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice for anyone, again. Anyone that you think out there that people should, you think somebody, like if you were telling somebody, hey, if you really want to relate to my culture, Google this person and find out about them.
Honestly, I don't have any particular one because everyone throughout history, every black man throughout black history has shaped this culture in some kind of way, from Nelson Mandela to Cassius Clay to Martin Luther King to Malcolm X. Everyone has had an impact in some sort of way. So there's not one individual who you can look up and read about to get an understanding of black culture, because it is a combination of everything that has happened to this point so far, and it is still growing like any culture. The only time it dies out is when it dies out. To answer your question, I couldn't label any one particular person.
I mean, fair enough. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants, and that's every culture out there. So
yeah,
David, we appreciate you taking your time out to come join us tonight. I know it was a long drive over here for you, and we appreciate it. Thank you for coming, sharing your personal time and your story with us. The whole goal is for us to listen. I think that's what this month is about. Is white culture needs to take a minute and listen to what black culture has to say. Just take your, I can't speak for you, but I can listen to you, and it can affect how I interact with the world in the future. So
yeah, and maybe one day it can all just be just one culture.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that's the goal for everybody.
I hope that's the goal for everybody.
It's the goal for me. So
Absolutely.
Just appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
All right, guys, we really hope you enjoyed those interviews. We hope you enjoyed hearing that perspective from some friends of ours. And it's different perspectives. There are people that we interviewed that might not necessarily agree with each other, but that's the important part about a diverse community and letting people speak for themselves. Is there's no one right way to think. There's no one right form of dialogue to have. And we thought that those interviews really touched on all that stuff. You got to hear from Mike, Tyler, and Quincy, all of which who served in the military. You got to hear from Ron Mack, who is he's a church choir director that has been trying to write comics for a long time. You got to hear from Vanetta, who brings a female perspective into it. You got to hear from all of these people talk about all of these things, and they said some important stuff. And if you're a white person listening to this, really take that stuff to heart, because that's what they're telling you what it's like to be black in America. And while they don't owe white people an explanation, it's beneficial to us to learn from them, and we thank them for letting us into that world just slightly.
Well, as you said, they don't owe us an explanation for how they feel. We as a society have to learn not only to listen, but to hear each other out. And we have to be open to hear how our actions affect other people, both positively and negatively. We must allow ourselves to be open to the change we want in the world. There's really no other options, guys. We're all on this planet together. We're all flying through space together. There's no other options. We have to learn to get along with each other. And the only way to do that is to open yourself up and be available for change. And these interviews affected me in a very personal way that I didn't know they would.
And I'd just like to say that I'm really glad we were able to do these interviews, because the reality of life is not everyone is as lucky as we are to have diversity in our friends. From whether your upbringing circumstances, your own personal maybe concerns about expanding out there. You may not have a whole lot of diversity in your circle of friends and who you hang out with. So we're fortunate to have that. So I'm glad we're able to kind of put that out there for those who maybe don't get to experience that other side from hearing other people's stories on a day-to-day basis like we do.
One thing I've learned about comics through the years, or because of comics through the years, is love beats hate every time, every day.
Absolutely.
Amen. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this Black Panther Black History Month special. We're wrapping out February. We've got some really cool stuff coming up here in the future for the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. We've got some more interviews with some more creators that we were able to get at some local cons. And we're also happy to announce that Craig and I are going to be driving our little butts up to Chicago and attending the C2E2. We're going to try to pack Sean and Jerry in our luggage, but we're not sure if that's going to work yet.
We will be bringing some interviews back with us.
If you're listening to this podcast and you are a creator and you are going to be at C2E2, even if you're, especially if you're an indie creator, we would love to help you get the word out about your books. That's part of why we're doing this. Or if it's anything else, it doesn't necessarily have to be about comics. Let us know.
Or if you're a creator that's listened to previous episodes and these guys have challenged you to come and fight them, this is a perfect chance for that. They're going to be there in the flesh, and you could pummel them.
Thanks for pointing that out, Jerry.
No problem. I'm putting targets on all your heads.
All right, guys, go forth, love some comics.